We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Antry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And apparently I'm just ever so slightly sick forever now.
It feels like your voice is still not great.
It's still not perfect. I've still got some phlegm stuck in the back of my throat pretty much continuously, so I have no idea what's going on. Hopefully one day that'll go away. But there we go. Not this week. If I cough or, pause for a second, that's what's going on, folks. The mystery is solved already.
Okay.
So right. I'm also feeling sick because, World Series, even though as a Vancouverite, cheering for anything Toronto just doesn't feel right. They're the only Canadian Major League Baseball team. So, I was cheering for the Blue Jays and unfortunately did not happen. Game 7.
So the
World
only
Series,
reason that I know that the World Series was going on was because I was at I am never at parties, but this weekend I went to three parties.
Okay.
It sucked. Okay.
The
only party I wanted to go to didn't start until like 11 p.m. And I'm like, listen, you people are you're too young for me to be showing up here. What is happening?
Yeah, these days that's too late to start.
That is. I am sorry. I don't care that it was daylight savings time on Saturday, but right, yeah, I got an extra hour of sleep. It didn't make any difference. No. I've been completely out of whack ever since.
Right.
But the only reason I know that the World Series was going on is because I was in the middle of a conversation and at one of those parties, and somebody brought it up, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah." And
then they kept talking about baseball, so I left because I don't care.
Well, congratulations to the LA Dodgers. That's back-to-back World Series wins. Yep. So, I mean, that's an impressive feat.
Is it?
It's very difficult to do. Yeah.
I will have to take your word for it.
Sure. But that happened. And then, yesterday, Dick Cheney died. So that's some significant
Didn't know that
news.
happened either.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's how plugged in I am to what's going on in my own country.
He was only 84. I always felt like he was considerably older than that, just in how I felt about him.
84. But he's been 84 the entire time.
That's not that old. So yeah, a combination of heart disease and pneumonia apparently is what was reported this morning. So yeah, so significant world news there. U.S. government still shut down. So
yep, that's true too. Yeah,
that's where we are in the world, folks.
That's the thing that's happening around here, and
yes,
no one's happy about it. Well, somebody's happy about it. Somebody who's making money off of it, but the rest of us who are
shouldn't be happy about a government
are not
being
happy.
shut down. It's not typically the best situation to be in.
Yeah, so I've had a very busy week, but nothing that is reportable here, really. It's a lot of unpacking the boxes. My wife is making plans for us to go places during times.
Aside from just partying all weekend?
Dude, we did literally a year's worth of partying in 1 week. I didn't want any of it. I'll be honest with you. Like I said, so we had a Halloween party that goes on every year. My wife goes to it often. I often find an excuse not to go. But this year I could not because she bamboozled me because she's like, "Oh, our son wants to go with his friend," which, if you know Jen, I don't know what generation he is. Z? Alpha? I mean,
Alpha's quite young, so
yeah, I think it's
probably
Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah,
most likely
2009. So whatever that is,
Gen Z.
That feels like Gen Z. He's Gen Z, and Gen Z is not. Millennials are also in the same boat that they weren't as forced to be as social as we were forced at Gen X.
Sure.
Gen X, we had no choice. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. If you wanted to do something, you had to go outside. You had to answer phones when they rang and learn those sorts of skills. And then if you wanted to keep in touch with somebody, you had to physically talk to them either through a phone or face to face. It was, I'm not saying it was the best thing because
I mean, the Gen Alpha kids are going to be the last generation to actually ever remember what it was like to have to talk to actual humans, because the generation coming up after them it's going to be AI avatars talking to each other, and you'll never have to interact with a human.
So, my son saying that he wanted to go trick-or-treating with one of his friends was like, it was like a drop everything. We're going to make sure this happens sort of situation. We wanted to make sure that, I've got one son who is he's got a very small group of friends, but if they don't come get him and take him places, then he'll just sit in his room and never do anything with anybody.
Okay.
I have another son who's extremely social, has a wider net of friends, and he goes and does stuff all the time. He's very outgoing and doing stuff. And this one, we're kind of trying to figure out what he is. So when he said he wanted to go do something with his friends, she was like, yeah, we got to make this happen. And he ordered a very expensive costume offline, and it arrived in time, even though it got stuck in customs, it said. And he was very excited about it. It was from some anime I had never heard of before, which probably makes me a bad parent, but whatever. And he looked a lot like Sherlock Holmes. It was that sort of era, like a long coat and a top hat and all that. And him and his friend went trick-or-treating. My wife was like, let's take him to this area near her brother's house where trick-or-treating, they do Halloween big time, and, it's very, very popular. There's tons of people around. Let's go there. And I was like, yeah, we can drop him off there. That'd be great. And as we're driving over there, she's like, oh, while we're in the area, there's that yearly party that you never want to go to. Why don't we stop in there? I was like, ooh.
Bamboozled.
I've been bamboozled.
Yep.
I've been hoodwinked.
Well done.
I've been scallywagged. Is that a scallywag? No, shanghaied.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's probably culturally inappropriate to say these days, but there you go. I don't know. Isn't everything?
I think so. I think that whatever. So I don't think the city of Shanghai did it to people. So we're not talking about the people of Shanghai doing it. I don't know if it's...
I think trying to even remotely argue about it when neither of us has any idea what we're talking about is probably only going to lead down a bad path. I'll just leave that one.
You're talking about two middle-class white men arguing whether or not something's culturally appropriate or not is only going to end poorly.
I'm only halfway, but that doesn't make a difference in this case. I don't know.
Whatever. You're Canadian. You're all white. I hate to break it to you. The rest of the world considers you white.
There's definitely not true.
There's no Canadian stereotype that doesn't involve whiteness, beer, and hockey.
I mean, beer, yes, hockey, yes. Agreed.
Anywho, so anyways, I got bamboozled into this, and we ended up at this party, and it was fine. My wife's like, did you have a good time? I was like, I mean, what do you want me to say? Do you want me to say? Do you want me to lie? I can lie. I mean, I'm good at it. I'm good at lying.
I always say questions like that. There's an answer that the person who asked it wants to hear. That's the answer you should give, and they want it to be true. And as long as you don't reveal anything to the contrary, everything is hunky dory that way. That's how we do.
But she knows. We've been married for 24 years, almost 25, and she knows I didn't want to go to that party, and she knows that the next night when we went to a party that was on Halloween. On Saturday, when we went to a party for the cycling group, I was like, I don't want to go to this. And these are technically my people. I am, right? But you know what I have in common with these people? Cycling.
Cycling, yep.
And that is it. Like, literally nothing else.
And it wasn't a cycling party. Like, it
was a party that was held by a cycling person who invited some cycling people and then also other of their friends. Okay. And the cycling people show up at, like she had to push forward the time of the party so that it started earlier, because the cycling people were like, what do you mean it starts at 7:30? I got to be home by 8. Because they got to go to bed so they can get up at 4 a.m. to go cycle.
And cycle, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
You guys,
I can see that.
You are literally the worst. Like, as a cyclist, and people are like, "Oh, cyclists, like those spandex wearing cyclists are insufferable." I know they are, and I am also a little insufferable, but I'm slightly less insufferable than those people. So we went to that party, and they were like literally there's hordes of cyclists walking out when we walked in at 7:30 because the party started at 6, which is way too early for a party.
That's too early. Yeah.
That's too early. But they had to do it because these, and then believe me, you think Dick Cheney would have fit right in. with the cycling group of people, because 84 is right in that kind of sweet spot of the people I cycle with. So not only do we not have anything in common because we are only joined by the act of cycling, but we're also generations apart. So that party sucked too. I was unhappy to be there. And then the last party was a rap party for the WRAP.
Okay.
For the show I was in at the Improv Theater here, which was based on the board game Clue. So after the final show, which ended at 10 o'clock, 10 p.m., they had the director and the owner of the theater had or he wasn't the director, but he was the owner of the theater, had a little rap party at his house, and a bunch of people showed up there.
Well, rap parties are fun. That should have been fun.
That was great. That was the only party I wanted to go to out of the whole group, because these people I have more in common with just in general. My wife's like, oh, they're all very young. I'm like, yes. Yes.
So am I, says Tom. So am I. In my
brain, last party we were at, we were the young ones, and we were like, oh, you people are old. And I'm like, let's go be with the young people so that we could, because they're all talking about go to the EDM raves and stuff like that. I'm like, that sounds awful, but
that's
tell
too
me
young
all
for
about
me.
it.
And I'm younger than you, so
it was fun. So, anyways, that was my stupid weekend, and we've been not frantically. We've been emptying boxes and getting things put away and making plans and talking about stuff. So, it's been going. We're getting settled in. My plan this morning was to go through the boxes of all the stuff that people sent me after the hurricanes, of all the equipment, and kind of sort everything out. Figure out what I could use and what needed to be put in storage or to rehomed or whatever it was I was going to do with it. And instead, it got cold and I didn't want to get out of bed. So
fair enough.
I just... In Florida, when it drops like 10 degrees, we all like go into hibernation.
I was going to say,
for like 2
Florida
weeks.
Cold is like what, under 80 degrees cold?
It was like 58 this morning. That's cold. 58. That's
really not, but
I was literally wearing shorts as I'm saying this.
No, I could see it. Yeah,
but it was coldish.
It's the change. It's the change, you know.
It does. And it throws us all off. We all get headache. My wife and I get headaches. We're like, oh, the change in barometric pressure is giving me a headache. I'm like, it goes from 99% humidity to 96%
That's why you haven't moved
humidity.
to Canada.
That's right. I would literally just wither up like a husk. Just be like all raw. So, Rob, what about you? What happened to you this week?
No partying for me, but over the weekend, and you might have done this too, I didn't see. I did participate for 1 hour anyway in DJ's 25 hours of home theater live stream thingy-mabob.
He sent you the link, did he?
I got one.
Did he?
Via text message.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Because I reached out to DJ and said, on Saturday afternoon, my wife's going to be gone, and I'm going to be home cleaning and doing cooking and stuff like that, which I did. And I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm going to do some podcast stuff on Saturday while you guys are gone. And I reached out to DJ. I said, hey, I can probably make it Saturday sometime. Just send me the link. He goes, well, there'll be 3 different links for the different times of day, and I'll send them to you. And that was it. So
I highly doubt it was anything intentional, Tom. He was juggling a gazillion. I can
interpret it
people.
no other way but a slight and we are now at war with the Brightside Home Theater, whatever the heck it's called.
That's it, Brightside Home Theater Podcast.
Yeah. There's it. The Brightside Home Theater Podcast is dead to me.
Okay.
And this man, DJ, and I are at odds. That
got the beef.
We've got the beefs, and I am bringing the heat.
All right.
Well, the Florida heat, which is probably still really hot compared to what's going on in New Jersey or wherever he's from. So there you go.
Boston area, just outside of Boston.
Same difference, same thing, whatever.
There you go. Well, anyway, I was there for 1 hour. I think it was in the second portion because time differences and all that stuff. So whatever it was, but I was there. If you want to check it out on the YouTube side, go to the live tab because it's not in the videos tab because the whole thing was streamed live. But you can check that out. So like I say, no partying for me. But I'm feeling relatively good about the sort of options, choices. I've been talking about my aunt that we're looking for her to move into long-term care. So the way our system works is that if you're going to do through the government health program get placed into long-term care through them, which we're keeping as an option because it's a long waiting process. And we're like, well, why not? Because we don't know what the financial situation is going to be, say, a year and a half or 2 years from now for her. And, why not at least be on the waiting list? So what they have you do is make your ranked selection of your top 3 choices. If it becomes emergency placement, then it's just whatever bed in whatever room in whatever location opens up first. That's where you go. But when it's non-emergency, they wait until one of your top 3 choice locations is open. And then you're not obligated to take it. But if you don't take it within essentially 24 hours, then you're off the waiting list and you have to start over. So it's pretty much you got to take it. But just the process of sort of looking through the various locations that are available and then, filtering through that and making my choices. I feel pretty good about the 3 ranked choices that I've made. Only one of which also offers like basically half through the government subsidized care program and then half just purely private. The other 2, it's either a very, very small number of private rooms or it's entirely through the government program. So that one actually might be my top choice. It's like closest to the neighborhood where she spent most of her life with her husband before downsizing and that. So yeah, that's probably going to be the number 1 choice there. And it gives the option of moving in sooner to the private location as soon as one of those rooms opens up, and then still being on the waiting list to maybe get some subsidy depending on what the financial situation is. But anyway, it's been a lot of research and reaching out and emails and phone calls and a couple of visits and stuff like that. So that's been most of my previous week.
That's exhausting, but yes. Oh, we did have a tenant move into our ADU this week.
Oh, really? That was quick.
So yes, they moved in November 1st, so that was their first month. They have a cute little dog.
Wow.
That I met, whose name, I think the dog's name is Chloe. I don't remember the tenant's name.
That's all right.
There's something broken in my brain, Rob. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I don't really blame anybody right now.
It's very disconcerting the way I can forget people's names. I was just the other day thinking about a person that I had known for years. And I was like, I realized I couldn't remember their name. I could see their face clearly in my mind, but I could not remember their name. And it just kept coming back to me for weeks and weeks. And the other day, I finally remembered their name, just like randomly, just like popped in my head. Oh, it's so and so. And I was like, oh, that's great. Yeah, how could I forget that name? It's such a unique name, and you were friends with them for years, and blah blah blah. And like, and now I can't remember their name again.
Okay.
So I don't know what's wrong with me, but I am severely broken, especially when it comes to names. But I didn't watch anything this week, Rob. I did get in fact, I have to make sure that, oh yeah, okay, good. I did get a bunch of movie codes from somebody, but I did, which we'll talk about in a second, but I did not watch anything this week because we have been up late. And
you've been partying too much.
Literally a year's worth of partying in one weekend. Like, why couldn't we have spread it out? Like once every 3 months would have been fine. But instead, we've got this.
You're all right.
Go on.
I did watch a movie this week. I watched Napoleon, and specifically the director's cut version of it. This is on Apple TV, which is now just Apple TV. They've got rid of the plus, so it's just Apple TV, the streaming
I'm
service.
glad that's not confusing for anybody. I know that. I know exactly what you're talking about when you say Apple TV.
Sure, but
I know you're talking about the service, or sometimes the box.
But and by director's cut, we're talking about Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott is the director of Napoleon, so this is another historical epic from Ridley Scott. He's done several at this point. I wasn't a huge fan of this movie. Did not love it. I did not watch the theatrical cut version because I wasn't going to watch this movie twice. Most places had said that the director's cut version was superior. It is about 45 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, meaning it's almost 3.5 hours long. The director's cut version is. It was already a fairly long theatrical movie, but added another 45 minutes or so into the director's cut version. So when we're talking
45 minutes longer than the original movie, is that what you just said?
The director's cut is 45 minutes longer than the theatrical cut. Yeah.
And the theatrical cut was how long?
About 2 hours and 45 minutes or so.
That's too long, Rob.
It was a pretty long movie.
The movie itself was too long, and adding 45 minutes is a slap in the face. The director's cut should have been shorter. That's all I have to say about that.
So, I mean, I'll say to its credit, I didn't feel like it dragged on, and I didn't feel like, oh man, I'm pushing 4 hours here and really feeling tired. I watched it all in one go, uninterrupted, no pauses, and it like pacing wise, this director's cut version felt perfectly okay on that front.
Okay.
So Ridley Scott, his previous historical epics, Gladiator and Gladiator 2, and some other ones that he's done as well. But, like, he's never been one to be in any way slavish to actual historical accuracy. And this movie very much is not historically accurate. And it does a sort of mix of, okay, there's some stuff that seems to be historically accurate. There's some stuff that seems to be pretty much purely apocryphal, and then there's some stuff where it seems like he wants to do his own take on it, something that isn't written down anywhere, but just sort of reading between the lines, and maybe this is the way it went type of thing.
The vibes he gets from history.
So this is starring Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon Bonaparte, and Vanessa Kirby and as Josephine, right? Josephine was his first wife.
Sure.
So really,
right.
I think
I'm so
the
good
movie
with names. Clearly, ask me.
I think the movie should have been titled Napoleon and Josephine, rather than just
Isn't there
Napoleon.
already a movie called that?
There very well might be. I can't recall, but that might be the reason why. But that is the framing of this movie. That is the through line of this movie, is focusing on the relationship. And more than that, they are using her as a symbol essentially for all of France. Because what this movie lacks most is France. We don't spend very much time at all in France, and when we do, it'll be one room in a building in France. We get no sense of France itself at this time because we're following Napoleon as he goes off to his 61 different battles that he fought. Now, we essentially see 3 of those battles portrayed on screen. The middle one is the only rather exhilarating one, and it was well done. Sure. And I mean, the whole thing is well filmed. There's oodles of money on screen. There's a gazillion extras. I don't know how many of them are AI generated, but at least the ones in the foreground seem to be real people. And so, yeah, I mean, the money is up there on screen, but like all of it just, it for me did not emotionally connect, except for a couple of scenes here and there. And then despite the exceedingly long running time, I mean, we are following essentially Napoleon's entire life. So yes, highly condensed. You still can't, and obviously you're not going to show every single battle that he was involved with in even a 3.5 hour running time. But I mean, there are just scenes that it really felt like, did I just miss 5 years? Like what happened between, the previous scene and this scene, and like some tonal whiplash that was going on there. The tone of this movie is all over the bloody place. That's one of the reasons I didn't care for it. It's like sometimes... Is that
because of the inserting 45 minutes back into it, do you think?
No, if anything, people were saying that it was worse minus those 45 minutes, that there's more connective tissue adding that time back in to make it slightly less jarring. But my interpretation of what they were attempting to do, both Joaquin Phoenix and Ridley Scott here, because obviously they were working collaboratively for him as the lead character in here, trying to show that Napoleon was not a single thing. He's not just a symbol. He was a real life person, that there must have been a reason why, that many 3 million people under his command died. Okay. So there must be a reason why people continue, like even once he was exiled and then returned, former military members of his rejoined him when he came back from exile after a year. And it's like, so there must be something about him that inspires people to follow him and fight and die for him. I didn't really get any sense of that. I was like Joaquin Phoenix is entirely capable of being charismatic and somebody would follow. I mean, we saw him in Joker playing a horrible, horrible person. Napoleon Bonaparte was a pretty darn horrible person, historically speaking. But it's like, you can see him as being someone who inspires people to follow him, as an actor. He's not incapable of it in any way, but it's just, there felt like there was so much missing. I'm like, why are all these people following him, other than just like, we know he won most of the battles that he fought. Like, okay, I guess that's enough, but that isn't shown to us. It isn't even really told to us. You just have to know that from actual history. So the feeling of it wasn't there. Like, I didn't feel inspired by Napoleon whatsoever. So it felt kind of weird where people like just turned on the current French regime and joined him again, because it's like, I don't really know why. Like, historically I know why, but in this movie I don't really know why. And then there are parts that are just goofy. There are parts that like, they're trying to show that Napoleon was just not one thing, but they don't formulate it into a real person. It's just kind of scattershot. It's like, sometimes he's yelling and abusive, and then other times he's all meek and, oh, I'm under your control, and then other times he's, like, kind of sniveling to people, and then he's exerting his control, and it's just whiplash back and forth. Each scene is, it's like its own little, skit that's going on there. And so, I mean, that seems to have been intentional, but it loses the sense of, A, that this is a real person, and then B, that I have any sense at the end of this movie of who this man was. I mean, if the point was just to be like, nobody can ever truly know who Napoleon was, okay, I guess mission accomplished, but it didn't really feel like, it wasn't that type of movie. It was trying to be a historical epic. It wasn't trying to be some kind of, like, artistic wild vibes take on the entire thing. So, yeah, like I said, I got plenty of criticisms for this movie, not in the production value, but at the same time, we've seen enough historical epics at this point that, like, massive battles shown on screen is not, like, truly as amazing and thrilling as it once was. I mean, if this was the first time you've ever seen it, but unfortunately, we've got all the other context. And then we know for a fact that Napoleon was not on his horse leading the charge into, like, any of the battles that he fought. But that's what they chose to do in this. Like, no, he's not Braveheart, but they tried to make Braveheart again, essentially. They have him give this speech on a horse to his troops, which historically we know never happened. It's like, that's not how he commanded things. They did a good job of showing, at least in the director's cut, that it's artillery. Artillery is really the thing that he advanced. The manufacturing of smaller artillery units that were easier to position and you could have more of them, and then his ability to know exactly where to fire that artillery and change the angles in between each shot to reposition the enemy troops precisely where he wanted them and have that tactical advantage. Did a good job of that, but the most thrilling use of it was entirely apocryphal. Historians say that the battle never happened the way that he wrote about it himself, but they went with the way he wrote about it. And so it's like, okay, so are we, like, yeah, what tone are we choosing here? There is no choice. It's just all over the place. It's every version of Napoleon you might imagine is at some point on the screen, and I don't know what to take away from that. I don't know what this movie has to say about him. The very ending, though, where we finally get the sort of wrap up a post-death, non-existent in real life letter from Josephine, that brought together the symbolic use of her as the entirety of the French people, being the symbol of all of that for us on screen, and that worked reasonably well. So it ended fairly strongly for me. I'll give it that much. But yeah, overall, I've got to give this a slightly thumbs down. It's not by any means the worst movie I've ever seen. There's plenty of very competent filmmaking in here, but I just didn't love Napoleon, the director's cut.
Yeah, there's a Napoleon and Josephine TV series.
Okay.
So that's what I was thinking of. I did apparently remember that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's hard. I think of dangerous when you're talking about this, and maybe it's because it's the same era, but I think, or similar era, I think about Dangerous Liaisons with Glenn Close and John Malkovich, and how those characters are often portrayed in two different ways, or three different ways, even really multiple ways, depending on which group they're with, and showing how somebody can be two things or different things to different people. Yeah. It's not easy to do, but it often requires a scene where you see them in one role and then they transition quickly into the second role. And then if that happens early enough, you're like, okay, when they're with certain people, they're like this. And when they're in a group, they're like, or in the public, they're like this. And that gives the audience some way of really identifying that. And audiences as a whole, and of course I don't mean this in any sort of insulting way, audiences are dumb. they're not, their brains are kind of switched off. They're meant to be fed information, and they're kind of like open receptacles. So you cannot really treat them as if they are thinking through everything that's going on in front of them and trying to delve deeper into it. You have to be a little bit more explicit and a little more obvious than you might want to be if it was a book, or if it were if it's something happening in real life. So you have to treat them a little bit differently. And sometimes I think movie makers, especially these types of, Ridley Scott's and the I don't want to call them auteurs, but the big names, they've
established.
Established. They've made so many good movies that they forget that they're not just making movies for them and their friends. They're still making movies for the masses who are, as a whole, need a little bit more hand-holding than I think that they are willing to do anymore, because they think it's beneath them.
I mean,
and that's
because this movie was told chronologically. Like I say, big gaps in time in between, but told chronologically. I mean, you can't get totally lost in it, but it felt unfocused to me.
Interesting. Yeah, I was never going to watch it anyways. Historical epics are not something I do. I don't know how I ended up watching Dangerous Liaisons, one of my all-time favorite movies by a long stretch, even though Keanu Reeves really tries to ruin it. But one of my all-time favorite movies. But it was back in the era of dual VHS decks, where you would take a movie and put tape over the little tab and then
dub to the other side.
Over. And I had 3 movies on one, and one was The Rocketeer. And I think it was The Crow, which of course everybody knows how I feel about that. And Dangerous Liaisons was smashed in the middle of those two in this 6-hour
super long play, 6-hour VHS.
And I was like, well, I watched it on my way to The Crow, basically. Yeah. And I was like, man, this movie's pretty good. And I must have watched. I mean, it was like my only tape for a long time.
There you go.
So I watched it a whole bunch.
If some poor kid out there does their school report on Napoleon based on this movie, whoo boy, are they going to get a bad score? It is not historically accurate.
Not great. No, that's okay. We're finding out very quickly that crowdsourcing information, which is kind of what this is. I was on, and I've talked about this before. When I started working on bikes, I joined a couple of Facebook groups that are about mechanics, and people posting problems and looking for help. And when I first joined the Facebook groups for these bicycle problems, I would look at the problem and try to figure out if I knew the answer before I read the comments. And then I never did, and now I often, if not always, do. Very rarely do I not. And somebody posted a question. It was pretty basic, but it was a question that mechanics don't often have to answer, because it's not a thing that you normally do. So. They asked which, there's 2 of these little jockey wheels that go in your derailleur, and if you buy them, you get a pair of them, but they're different. And one's meant to go on top, closest to the cassette or freewheel, and the other one's meant to go on the bottom, which is as far closer to the ground. And they asked, which is which, which is which, and I was like, I don't actually know which is which, because when I replace them, I never replace 2. Okay. I replace them one at a time. And, I just match them up, and, we have like a bin full of them, or, like a little container full of them, and I just grab the right one. So I was like, I don't know. So I clicked on it, and somebody was being snarky. It was like, it took me 10 seconds to Google the right answer. It's this one. And then they posted a screenshot of the Chrome or Google AI answer. And the response right underneath it, and this is how society's downfall will occur. It's because that is absolutely wrong, but it's been crowdsourced from a bunch of very wrong people all over the internet. And that's not right. And I was like, it was a good reminder to me to, if I do not know the answer to something, scroll below the Google AI stuff, because you are often going to get the wrong answer. And it was clearly wrong. It was
there's really only 2 answers that could be given. So it's 50-50.
And to be that wrong and that confident about it is the thing that's so funny for me. So anyways, AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can come to the website, avrant.com, where you find our shows, our show notes, any links to any products or whatever articles that we refer to. You can find our Flickr albums, follow along with the pictures that we'll be referencing throughout this podcast, as well as our audio and older shows. You can find us on facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant, where on YouTube the pictures will be embedded into the video, and you can see us talking to each other and my terrible lighting, which I still have not fixed.
Yeah.
And it is unlikely to happen, but we're getting close.
No lie about that.
Yeah, we are getting close. There's a piece of furniture over here I got to get rid of. And there's a mattress on this side that has to get onto a frame of some sort. And then there's going to be a desk on that side. And then maybe that's where it'll happen.
Okay.
But maybe not. Contact Rob directly, rob@avrant.com. His social says @FirstReflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. I don't do socials all that much anymore, even though I just said I was on Facebook. But believe me, I'm not posting anything. Listeners of the week. To become the listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, where you can send us a PayPal donation. If you have a PayPal account, it'll just go directly to us, 100% of it. If you do not have a PayPal account, you can put your credit card information in, which I assume they keep secure. I know I don't have access to it. And then they'll take a small fee and then send the rest of it to us. And if you want to support us monthly, go to patreon.com/AVRant podcast, where you can sign up to be a ongoing, continuing monthly supporter. That's a minimum of $1 a month. And again, they take a small processing fee from that. Send most of it to us. So right now we have 124 patrons over at patreon.com. We want to thank each and every one of you.
That's right. That is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So big thanks to our 124 patrons over there. The number went back down because we're into a new month. And we definitely had some credit cards expire. Yes.
That's right. If you can't support us financially, support us in other ways, and we will mention you here. So Ren sent a whole bunch of movie codes, and Julian did the same thing. And they sent them over here for us to check out to make sure that they work. Most of them did. Some of them were duplicates of codes I've tested before. And a lot of the ones that come from WB, I know this is going to come as a surprise to you, are showing either expired or no longer valid.
Yeah.
So I think they're not supporting that anymore. WB is cutting every corner they can.
What a shocker.
So, which was disappointing because some of the WB ones were the ones I won't say I wanted most, but I was definitely excited about. Most of them I'm excited about. There were some, like I said, some duplicates and stuff. But so thank you to Ren and thank you to Julian for
yes, indeed. Yeah, we mentioned Ren last week, but Ren came through, did exactly what was said. So all those codes showed up, oodles of them. It was a lot. And Julian sent a whole bunch too. So thank you both.
Yeah. Notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from some of our listeners, including Rohan, Jason, and Anonymous. Thank you for thanking us.
That's right. I'll say the names one more time. It's Rohan, Jason, and Anonymous. Thank you very much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
We're half an hour into this podcast. I'm out of
more than
all
that.
Liquid.
We're like 40 minutes into this
problem.
podcast because somebody's chatting about personal life and not home theater. But that's okay. That's okay.
In the news, Samsung announced that in 2026 they will release HDR10 Plus Advanced. Sounds like a razor blade.
It's getting there. It's about
it sounds exactly like now with 5 times the cutting power. You didn't think they let Dolby pull ahead with Dolby Vision 2 and Dolby Vision 2 Max? Did they? Is it really called Max?
There's the 2 tiers. There's Dolby Vision 2 and Dolby Vision 2 Max. Yeah,
that's dumb.
It is.
HDR10 Plus Advanced development doesn't seem to be quite as far along as Dolby Vision 2, though, as Samsung was only able to show simulated demonstrations and not the real thing in action yet. I don't believe any demonstration anymore. It is so clear that it is like this is gameplay from the game. Nope, it's CGI. It's just a cutscene. Oh, this is a robot that will do your dishes. Nope, it's a dude in a suit in another room who's controlling that thing.
Stupid Neo robot. Oh my god!
When they released that it was a dude with a VR headset, I was like, oh my
and not
god!
Not even an expensive VR headset. It was just a Meta Quest on that dude's face. Which explains why he didn't have particularly great depth perception when loading the dishwasher.
But you can still order it, and they'll send it to you with a dude.
$20,000 pre-order. Why not?
With a dude, you get they may not. You have to pay for a service to pay for a dude.
Yeah, the dude is remote.
Dudette. I don't know. I'm not judging, and who will control it. Poorly, apparently, remotely. And have complete access to your house and go through your mail.
I mean, it's okay because, we all know that 5G made all of our wireless communications completely instantaneous, right? Isn't that what 5G did? That's what they said it was going to do.
It's not going to cut out as it says start to close the hand, and then the hand keeps closing and closing and closing. I don't know. Maybe they'll work flawlessly. Who am I? Who am I to judge? All I know is don't ever order anything based on promises.
Right.
Have we learned nothing from every single product ever that has done this? All you Cybertruck owners who order that based on promises, look at what you got, compare it to what you were promised, and then let your cognitive dissonance try to figure it out. Because the rest of us are looking at you like, you got played, boy. Anyways, they're touting 6 new features that HDR10 Plus Advanced will add on top of the existing HDR10 Plus format. HDR10 Plus Bright. I already hate all of this naming convention, but anyways,
I did not come up with these. I am sorry,
I'm not
Tom.
saying that
it's
you
not
did.
my
I don't
fault.
hate you. I hate the naming convention. I said that specifically. Was the first thing mentioned is a bidirectional tone mapping, which is also a feature of Dolby Vision 2, although Dolby strangely underplayed their version of it. So if your TV can go brighter than anything the content calls for, which has not been a problem. So
yeah, but it
recently,
can be now. We got these 4,000,
5,000,
5,000, 6,000 nit TVs and stuff that's
if you have
only
old
mastered to 1,000.
Like yeah, your TV can go brighter than anything that the content calls for. HDR10 Plus Bright can expand the content's peak brightness range to use the full capabilities of your display. How could that possibly go wrong? HDR10 Plus Genre lets the content creators flag their work as one of the several preset genres. It isn't exactly clear what changes happen to the image as a result. I don't hate that.
Seems entirely unnecessary to me. Everything is mastered to the exact same standards. Why do you need different genre settings?
I don't hate the idea of it.
I guess.
Like Rob said, I don't really see the need for it, but I guess I don't know. It would be. I think it's mostly just to make something else light up. I think that's the thing.
Pretty much.
HDR10 Plus Intelligent Frame Control, which is all part of it. Intelligent Frame Control is all capitalized. So there you go. Let's compatible systems change the frame rate and motion smoothing on a scene-by-scene basis.
That's a Dolby Vision 2 Max thing as well.
Yeah. HDR10 Plus Intelligent Gaming offers dynamic tone mapping on the server end of things for cloud gaming, but the streaming game service itself has to support HDR10 Plus Advanced. So, good luck with that. HDR10 Plus local tone mapping supposedly lets the content interact on a metadata level with individual local dimming zones on compatible TVs.
I.e. Samsung only, because how in the heck are content creators going to have any idea how to individually control dimming zones behind the LCD layer? It's a strange one, this one.
I keep reading it, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Supposedly lets the content interact on a metadata level with individual local dimming zones on compatible. Like most of the stuff, I'm just like, why don't you need any of this? Just make it do the thing that it's supposed to do. Like if it's already mapped to something.
Yeah, like if you have each pixel with a luminance level already attached to it, I don't know why you need separate data to control a local dimming zone. But
I don't understand it.
Yeah, that one's a bizarre one. That is purely going to be a Samsung only thing.
Yeah. And finally, advanced color control can allow TVs. Is that also called HDR10 Plus Advanced Color Control.
It didn't have HDR10 Plus, before
So
Advanced
maybe
Color.
this is just a Samsung thing?
It just said Advanced Color Control. That's the sixth feature.
Advanced Color Control can allow TVs to expand the color gamut beyond what the content actually called for to take advantage of your TV's color capabilities. Again, anything that tries to make it something do something it's not, or display something it isn't, is always questionable.
It's hard to say you're maintaining the creator's intent at that point.
Well, maybe if the creator had access to all those tools, they would have their intent would have been to use the wider color gamut or the brighter TV capabilities or whatever. But the fact is that they didn't, and now you're going to try to interpolate from the data that's on the disc.
The argument on the other side is, hey, when nobody says it's wrong to use an audio up mixer to expand a 5.1 to make use of all 11 speakers that you have. So some people who do, and some people want the straight ahead, don't do any up mixing, and that's also okay. But yeah, that's the idea here. Right? I paid for a TV that has wider color and brightness capabilities than the content I'm actually watching. Fill it up, make it go as wide in color and as bright as this TV can possibly go. Expand my content to fill up the capabilities of my TV. I understand that. That's not like a foreign idea to me.
Yeah. I understand it too. I just wonder, as far as audio, I feel like we're less sensitive to, let's say, inaccuracies in upmixing sort of thing. So, we're just going to spread the music around a little bit, make it seem a little bit more surroundy, is one thing. But trying to get things extra bright or extra dark is a little questionable for me. But we'll see. It's all in the implementation, so I'll hold off judgment. Amazon Prime Video has already said they'll support HDR10 Plus Advanced, and then we can assume that future Samsung TVs will have it, of course. So get us some Samsung if you want this. You're the only ones that'll have it. It's very exciting. And I think it's very easy for somebody like Amazon to say they'll support something and then later on go,
I mean, as long as they release one thing with it, they can say they supported it. So
I suppose that's true too. We'll support anything that is sent to us in that format. Yay.
No, I fully expect TCL and Hisense will have this on board because they're going to be the first Dolby Vision 2 supporters as well. So there it is.
GiK Acoustics has refreshed their website and updated their combo panel lineup. The former Alpha and Impression series panels are no longer separated, and their decorative scatter plates on the fronts now sit flush with the front edges for an upgraded fit and finish. So if you want combo panels for GiK, they're now called Amplitude, and the selection process for choosing your options and adding the panels to your cart has been streamlined and improved. Amplitude acoustic panels are 2 inches thick in total. You can choose from 2 foot square, basically, and they're 2 inches thick, so they're $99. 1 foot by 4 foot narrow, which is also $100 or $99. 2 foot by 3 foot portrait, which is also $100.
And I think that's a misprint on their website, but that is currently what showed up as we're recording this. But I'm pretty sure the price on the 2 foot by 3 foot is going to be a little bit higher.
Yeah, like $125 or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
And 2 by 4 foot, which is like your typical size, the rectangle is $159. Or 160. And then select from 20 available Chimera fabric colors, 12 different decorative scatter plate designs, and 5 different wood stain finish colors for those scatter plates. So you can kind of mix and match and make them your own. So those prices don't seem outrageous.
No, and this is a more straightforward selection and add to your cart process. So I like that. It's much easier to understand than their old process where it was like, here are all the available options, but you kind of got to decide beforehand and then fill it in a form later on. It's like, no, this is much easier. You just choose what you want. It all shows up in the image on the left, and it's like, yep, there it is. That's the panel I want to add to cart.
So the Amplitude bass traps, which can also be, I wish they wouldn't call them bass traps. I know why they do, but I wish they would call them something else because people think you can't just put them on your wall. They'll only absorb the bass.
Right.
They're 4 inches, 6 inches, or 8 inches thick in total. The same 2x2, 1x4, 2x3, and 2x4 foot shapes are available in the same 20 fabric colors, 12 scatter plate patterns, and 5 wood stain colors. Prices range from $129 for a 4 inch thick square up to $289 for an 8-inch thick rectangle, so the big one.
I didn't list every single permutation because that's just far too much, but that is the price range you're looking for, from the thinnest bass trap they offer being 4 inches thick, and then, the face of it being 2 foot by 2 foot, all the way up to the thickest being 8 inches thick, which is great, and 2 foot by 4 foot. So yeah, again, those prices not utterly ridiculous, I don't think, in any way. That's really, really pretty reasonable pricing still.
So the Amplitude corner bass trap can have either a 2x2 front face, which is a demi, I guess, at $199, or a 2x4 foot front face, which is the standard for $300, with a triangular shape to fill up any 90-degree corner.
Yeah.
Does that also have a scatter plate on the front of it, too?
Yep. Yeah, because, these are all part of the Amplitude. So Amplitude means you still got the same choice of colors and the patterns of the scatter plate and the wood stain finish on those as well. So, yeah, I like these.
Yeah. I'm sure they're very attractive. I didn't click on them to see.
Okay.
Comments from our listeners. Nathan, our recent discussion about figuring out exactly how loud a certain tower speaker can play from 10 feet away before it starts to become dangerous for the speaker, not the listener's ears, made Nathan think about a CEDIA white paper that anyone can download and read for free. It's a reference audio level and SPL capabilities white paper that was published fairly recently, and it helps clarify the recommendations for sound pressure level that are set out in CEDIA's RP22 document. Towards the end of the paper, they give examples of calculating maximum output capabilities for hypothetical speakers that either include CEDIA's own ideal specifications format or are missing a bunch of that specification data, as is so common if you're just looking at manufacturers' websites. Nathan hopes that CEDIA's efforts might help improve the way specs are listed. It will not.
For the speaker manufacturers that specifically target CEDIA installers as their primary means of selling their speakers, I think it could have an impact there. If CEDIA is like, here's the specs we would love to have listed. So yeah, there could be some there. There
could be some, but I bet that will be provided to those people and not
probably
on
not
website.
On the website. That sounds about right.
Because they would rather just list it however they want to list it, and now therefore you can't do an apples to apples comparison and have people online going, "See, this one's 0.5 dB louder at 12 feet than this other one." Yeah, whatever. But in the meantime, consumers can learn some very nuanced and interesting facts about reference volume from this white paper, and don't worry that it says add to cart. When you're on the website, once you do, the price is $0. We'll have the link.
We'll have the link to it. That's right.
All right. I'm very distraught about the lack of liquid in this room right now, and I want to go, but I can't find I can't leave. You won't let me go. I'm trapped.
Right.
I've been bamboozled.
I've been absolutely forcing you to speak as much as you have been. That's how this happened.
Well, I don't want to leave when you're talking to me, because that's just mean. When you're talking to the listeners, that I can leave and I can come back, but I can't. We are speaking to each other. It would be rude to just walk out in the middle of it, unless you talked about baseball, in which case I am literally going to stand up.
That won't be me. I'm not a gigantic baseball fan. It was just we had the only Canadian team in the World Series, so we got to mention.
All right. Sasi. This is our listener questions now. Sasi is familiar with Acoustimac and GiK for printed art on acoustic panels, and they can sell just a fabric with an image print on it so you can wrap your own DIY panels. But is there a cheaper alternative that we can recommend? I can see that Rob has it linked here, but we have mentioned it many times on this podcast, and in fact, I think in the AV Gadgets article I wrote about doing this is also there, is Spoonflower. So Rob will take you through that while I find the link.
Yeah, spoonflower.com is a place that you can certainly go, and yes, the end price will be less expensive than ordering the finished printed panels from either Acoustimac or GiK. Now, they of course have a rather large selection of various fabrics that you can choose from, and people are always asking the obvious follow-up question of which of those should I choose. So for a long time, it was called Performance PK. But they've changed the name. It's now called Sport PK. So at least the PK is still in there. But thankfully, they even mention right in the little minor description before you choose it, this is their own recommendation for fabric posters. So yes, this is the one that should work reasonably well there. So you just look at the specs that they give for the width of the bolt, and then you're ordering it by the linear foot or the linear yard. But yeah, ultimately the price going there is going to be less expensive. Do be aware, though, that this material does stretch in both directions. So you need to have at least cognizance of that for when you're going to be wrapping your own DIY panels, because that can definitely make a difference to the finished product, is that this is capable of stretching, but it does not pill. If you do end up washing it, it is very good at retaining the colors and not fading if you do need to run the fabric through the wash. They are doing an ink-based process, though. That is what Spoonflower does. So if you want the sublimated dye process, it's really only GiK that's offering that if you want that instead of an ink-based process. Acoustimac uses an ink-based process as well, so it's not as though you can't get very good-looking results from that, and Spoonflower will be akin to what you would get from Acoustimac.
So we mentioned many times about how we think that LPF or LFE setting in AV receivers should just be removed at this point, and that we should always just leave it set at 120 hertz no matter what. But why does the LFE channel need a low pass filter at all to begin with? Why isn't it just full range channel, and then it's up to the mixers and mastering engineers to put whatever they want in it? I don't remember why this became a thing. My guess is that, and this is usually the case, we have a setting for something because there were early in disc releases or content releases problems that needed to be solved, and that problem in this case was almost certainly there was stuff in that LFE channel that was not supposed to be there, or it was playing too high, and it was causing problems. So somebody decided that we needed to have this in here in order to make sure that if there was an issue, you could get rid of it. But there isn't ever, I can't say there's never an issue, but there's rarely any point to having this setting. And the way the setting works is that it basically cuts off any above 120 hertz. It's not a hard brick wall, but above 120 hertz, anything that is in the LFE channel does not get sent to your subwoofer, basically is what it's saying. And you're thinking, well, why would there be anything in there that was above 120 hertz? It's a subwoofer. It shouldn't be playing above like 80, maybe 100. And the answer is, you're right. There shouldn't be anything up there. That's why we're cutting it off.
As far as the signal is concerned, it's a 6-channel signal, right? 5.1 is how we talked about it, but it's a 6-channel signal, and you'll see that in computer terms, right? They just refer to it as a 6-channel signal. They don't refer to it as 5.1, where the 0.1 took up less data in the stream or something like that. It's not the case. It is just another full range channel. So theoretically, there could be anything in there, including noise, and that's essentially the reason we still have that low pass filter setting for the dedicated low frequency effects channel is just inertia. It's they put it in there because, exactly like Tom says, early on, occasionally there'd be noise in that channel because it is a full range channel. It's just a 6th channel. So they're like, look, let's just make sure that everything that decodes these 6-channel signals will just, as a safety precaution, we'll have a low pass filter on the 0.1 channel so that if some noise ever squeaks in there, it won't be played by, at the time, subwoofer or just large speakers that didn't have any protection filtering on them. They didn't have the Class D amplifiers with the DSP control back then. It was just whatever got in there got amplified, and if you're trying to make a 12 or a 15-inch driver move at 10,000 hertz, that could be a mechanical issue. So, if some noise got in there, that it was just a safety valve to make sure noise didn't get in there, and it's just inertia at this point for why it's still there.
Yeah. Yeah, AV receivers collect features and settings, and like hoarders, they cannot get rid of them. So, that's why it's here. Inertia is a good way to describe it, but also if you got rid of it, somebody would complain. So why not just leave it there?
Somebody will be saying, "Hey, my crossover to all my speakers is at 80 hertz, so I don't want anything." I mean, obviously some because it's a slope, not a brick wall, but I don't want sounds above 80 hertz coming out of my subwoofer ever. So I want the ability to manually lower that even on the low frequency effects channel, which actually would mean that sounds are now being lost, or at least definitely attenuated because they are not being rerouted. You're not getting the sounds in the dedicated low frequency effects channel rerouted based on the frequency that you choose for that low pass filter. So that's where we're like, why would you ever change it? It's an industry standard frequency that's been chosen, but whatever if some people want to. So there's that setting.
So he asked, do I have a plan for the equipment that will go in my new small home theater? TV and receiver choices that I can share, speaker and subwoofer choices. Given the small dimensions of the room, will any of the speakers be in walls or on walls? I am never putting anything in wall.
Okay.
I would consider putting something on wall, but
Sure.
based on how we have the room set up right now, and based on the closet and the window, so what we have right now, there's so the room is at the front of the house, closest to the street, which is actually across the hall from this room.
Okay.
So there is often road noise that we can hear, even though these are impact whatever windows and all that stuff. You can still hear stuff clearly. Maybe you guys can't, but I definitely can. So the couch is facing like the side of the house where there is a smaller window, but on the front of the house, which will be to the right of the couch, is a very big window. So putting something on that wall is possible, but it is a little on the iffy side as far as having someplace to mount it. On the left wall, there's a very large closet. And a door, which is kind of at the door. The wall for the door is at an angle, like a 90-degree angle from the rest of the wall, so it kind of cuts across and cuts the room a little bit. So I've been looking at it because our couch is on. It's heavy, but it's on hardwood. No, whatever this laminate crap is. And then we have like the little felt feet thing underneath it to make sure it's not going to scratch up the floor. Well, the thing moves around like crazy. Like we sit in, every time you sit in it, kind of scooches back. So I have some plans. Plan number one is I'm getting a rug. We have a rug in there right now, but it's like a Turkish rug that is not thick, and it's only in there because it lived in our garage for 1 million years and it was high enough to not get water on it. So we have it in there, and the reason I know the couch moves is because I was like, man, that rug is way farther away than it used to be. So we're going to need to decide where we want the couch, and I'm going to get a rug that the couch is going to be on top of as well, so that the couch will stay still, the rug will stay there, and everything will be fine. And I want to get something and I'm open to suggestions. If anybody wants to send out some recommendations, I would like to get something that was, because I've seen these online, that have like the design is kind of designy, but also if you look at it closely, it's Star Trek or Star Wars or, or Lord of the Rings or something.
It's made up of the little images inside.
Yes. Yeah. So I am interested in something like that. I just haven't had time to shop for it.
Sure.
And I don't know what size I need either. So there's that. I mean, it can't be much bigger than the whole room is like 13 by 15 or something like that. So it's not a huge room, but it's very tall. So what my plan is to put the surround speakers on stands behind the couch, just the behind and to the sides as much as I can of the couch. And whatever speakers I end up using, I do have some SVS, the satellite speakers.
Satellites, yeah.
Prime satellites.
That sounds like a very reasonable choice.
Yeah, there's some, I have to go, like I said, I have to go through the boxes. I know I've got the triad bronze in there too, that I might use. I'm going to kind of like look at them and maybe test them out. There's no reason not to because they're all here. For front speakers, right now we're using the KEF, the Q series, which I like perfectly fine.
Yeah.
As far as subwoofers, and then Atmos speakers, because it's going to be a 5-point system. Atmos speakers, I've got the Prime Elevation speakers currently still at my old house, mounted to the ceiling.
But they were not destroyed, so they were no reason.
Plenty high enough. So I will take those down, and then I might have to call them for new mounts, because I think they're going to be mounted like on the wall, and because of the height of the ceiling, it's going to be too high to have them on the ceiling. So I'll have them mounted high on the front and back walls. And I want to do the flat wire from Monoprice. So I'm going to.
I don't think they have it anymore, but Sewell still does. Sewell still has their Ghost wire, so same diff.
Yeah, so I will. I want to try to do that and see how that works out. My wife's really into puttying these days.
That's
so
right.
Maybe she'll help me out and get that. That'll be part of her project. Then, as far as subwoofers, obviously I'm probably going to be looking at because PC 12 NSDs is what I had. Were ruined. Those floated away, literally. I would imagine I'm going to end up with some sealed boxes in here because there is not a ton of room. So I would
seems like the reasonable choice.
Yeah, the SB1000 or SB2000s, depending on the cubic feet. I haven't actually calculated it to know exactly what it is.
Go for the 2000s. And
that would be front left corner, front right, rear right corner is where those would end up, I think, and go pretty well. So yeah, that's sort of the plan. The center channel, and then a new TV, of course, will be determined on the seating distance that we finally end up with.
But will it be OLED?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be OLED.
There you go.
We also have to put up some sort of drapes to black it out because right now it's not blacked out at all. That being said, we are literally never in there unless it's dark.
And going to continue using the NAD receiver?
Yes, I have. I would like it, and I've got no problems with it. I was having one issue with it, but I was having one issue recently because I would turn on everything. The one thing that I'm using the Apple TV remote to control everything,
right?
And I will, so I'm using ARC basically. It doesn't ever turn off the older LG TV that we have, that we got given by somebody, which I was pointing out to my wife. I'm already laying down the framework. I'm like, I paused the video we were watching, and it was a blown out white screen, or part of the screen was blown out white. I'm like, look at how it's kind of cloudy in the corners. Now watch how when I press play, watch how those clouds stay there. I said, that's the TV itself. That's whatever. And her reaction is not what I had hoped. Oh my God, we need a new TV. It was, so.
Not particularly surprising, but yes.
Yeah, not so particular. Anyways, OLED, yes. But I can't imagine us going over 70s, whatever the 70-inch one is.
Yeah, 77.
I imagine.
That's very comfortable. That's what I have.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what the seating distance is and where we end up. Because when we first set this room up, the TV, we were much closer. And the 55 or 50-inch TV that we had felt insanely close. And it didn't feel, like Rob talks about, when you sit too close to a TV, even though the field of view is right, it just feels too close. That was kind of where we were. So when we scooted back, it feels more normal, but the TV feels too small now. So I think we'll end up like a 65 or, that range, 65 to
77. It's going to be a 77.
We'll see. Anything that could lower the price because we're going to have to buy it. And then I plan on, doing whatever. As far as upgrading receivers and all that stuff, I don't know.
Only if necessary.
Only if necessary. Isn't. Yeah, and and as far as acoustic treatments, I've got a bunch of panels that people have given me, and what I'm going to do is just break them down and then rebuild them, new panels into the shape and size I want, and then maybe get some, like we were talking about, printed stuff artwork to put on there, or Acoustimac is in Tampa. I just go over there and talk to them and say, listen, this is what I want. Because, we are going to have to put some stuff in there. It is better because basically I took every panel that we've been given and it's behind the couch, all stacked on top of each other. So I got a big old bass trap back there.
It's a big old bass trap right now.
So, not on walls except for the Atmos speakers. So there'll be a 5.2.4 in the end.
Sounds great.
So that's the plan. So he says, if price is not a consideration, what do we think of the Sofa Baton X2 versus the unfolded Circle Remote 3? First of all, that is a dumb name. And
it's not. I think that's the third or fourth name that company is on at this point. Because they used to be the
Unfolded Circle.
Yeah, they used to be the YIO at one point. I know that for sure. But now they are Unfolded Circle, and they're up to the Remote 3.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it now for the very first time because why not? And you can only pre-order this, it looks like.
That's been perpetual. I mean, DJ has one. He did the Kickstarter when they first put up the Remote 3, and he actually received one. I think it was not that long ago, he said, when we did the 25-hour podcast, it came up. But I've been, every once in a while I take a look over there, and it only ever says pre-order for me. So there you go. Price is also in euro, no matter where you are set.
Oh, well, that's exciting. So it's got a dock. It's got
technically optional. You kind of need the dock for it to work the way you want it to, but it is a separate purchase. You can get them as a bundle together for 420 euro for the remote and the dock.
420, huh?
So that's more expensive than the Sofa Baton X2, that's for sure. If price were a consideration, Sofa Baton is winning on price.
Right. So what are your thoughts? Because I don't have no thoughts about either one of these things because I haven't touched either of them.
Well, yeah, that's the issue. We really can't render any verdict on either of them. I will just say that, like, I've seen people, including DJ recently, holding the Unfolded Circle Remote 3, so it's not that it's vaporware. It does exist. It's just it never seems to be widely available. It seems to be a perpetual either. I mean, they've gone through 3 separate Kickstarters, and I don't know of anyone who wasn't in the Kickstarter who actually got one of the things. So it just seems to me that the X2 is going to be the much more widely available. I know for a fact their database is bigger than Unfolded Circles at this moment. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like, Unfolded Circle is very much enthusiast-driven. We want to do everything that every person, every niche request, they want to do it. And I believe them that they actually want to do it. It's, can they? And in a timely fashion? I don't have a... Like, this is me personally, right? You asked for our opinion. Yeah. So this is purely opinion based on never having even held the thing, let alone used it. So gigantic caveats and grains of salts to take with this thing. But I feel more, if I'm recommending to someone, I feel more comfortable recommending the X2 at this point. It is going to be more widely available. The price is lower.
It's going to be available, period.
Yes, we know the database is really quite robust at this point. And yes, there are people who have all kinds of, I'm not even going to say completely niche, I'm just going to say not particularly often used requests that, I mean, Sofa Baton updates frequently, but they're not getting to every single thing that people want to do. But yeah, I just feel more comfortable saying X2 at this point. That's my personal opinion and nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that, mostly because if somebody said to me, oh, I'm going to buy a remote, should I get the Sofa Baton X2 when it comes out, or should I hold out for the Unfolded Circle Remote 3 or whatever that thing is?
Yeah. I'm like, good luck.
Never
I don't
say
know
hold
how
out.
long you're going to be waiting.
Yeah, I would never say hold out because the Sofa Baton is coming out. They've already come out with 2-3 remotes now. So this X2 will come out, and when it comes out, it will be available to many, many people. So I would say go ahead and get that. And if you hate the Sofa Baton X2 or whatever, then when
get in on the pre-order, and whenever it eventually comes, hooray! Yeah.
So lastly, Power Sound Audio has redesigned their 10-inch horn-loaded speakers using Klippel measurements and optimization. I'll be honest with you, this whole Klippel thing is starting to irritate me. Why does everything got to be built on that? It's like it's going to end up being very... So the NRC in Canada was sort of this ephemeral place that speakers would go.
It's not ephemeral at all. It exists. It's a real physical place you can go to.
In the mind of consumers, it was like, oh, we tested it at the NRC, and people are like, oh, well, they tested it at the NRC. It must be a good speaker. Yeah, that's got to be good because they tested it at the NRC. And now, years and years later, after all these speakers, we now say it's got that NRC sound. Which is not a bad thing, not in any way, shape, or form. But I feel like this Klippel thing is going to end up being the same. Right now, we're like, oh, they use Klippel measurements.
It's being used for a similar purpose. The idea of the Klippel is that you can take many, many more measurements much more rapidly at your location, as long as you got around. Well, it's about $130,000 these days to spend. But you know what? That's cheaper than building an anechoic chamber of your own.
It is true.
And the measurement process is faster than even if you had an anechoic chamber. So that's the advantage of it. It's just more data to work with more quickly at a lower price.
Yeah. So anyways, they redesigned their 10-inch horn-loaded speakers using Klippel measurements and optimization. The new versions have a K at the end of their model number, presumably for Klippel. The Klippel measurements for the frequency response look really good and linear now, but the dispersion measurements indicate quite narrow vertical dispersion and then an even but not terribly wide horizontal dispersion. That's not inherently good or bad. It's just a thing, just something to know.
Yep.
But what happens if you turn one of the MTM monitors on its side to act as a center? Well, you can rotate the horn 90 degrees, so presumably that'll keep the treble dispersion reasonably close to the same, but with the woofers now on either side, instead of above and below, will that affect the dispersion the way that the Klippel measurements of the vertically oriented MTM monitors does not show?
It shall. Yes,
I
will.
mean, yes. That is how that works exactly.
Yeah. Now, one thing is, because this is an exceedingly efficient and exceedingly high power handling and exceedingly high power output tweeter, like in general for this, I'm talking for this type of size and this price point, it is higher power handling, higher output than most other tweeters that you're going to find at this sort of price point. Because of that, they are able to cross it over to those pair of woofers at a lower frequency, which you would definitely want to do with those being 10-inch woofers, right? This looks like a MTM speaker, but those are 10-inch woofers in those speakers. These are large, high output, high efficiency speakers, but they are crossed over at quite a low frequency between that horn-loaded compression tweeter and those pair of 10-inch woofers. So that means that you are going to have some lobing and comb filtering that is unavoidable from the physical characteristics at the crossover region between those woofers and the tweeters. And it is going to mean that in the clippable measurements, if you turned one of the MTM vertically oriented monitors onto its side, and even rotating the tweeter 90 degrees to account for that, the measurements will not superimpose. They will be different. The vertical measurement should be pretty darn similar, at least on the tweeter end, because that is predominantly by the horn. However, in that MTM vertical arrangement, some of that narrowing of the higher frequencies is due to having the woofers directly above and below the tweeter. So it might actually have very slightly taller dispersion in the horizontal orientation. But it would almost certainly have somewhat narrower horizontal dispersion, but only at the frequencies where the woofers and the tweeter are playing in common. So it's not going to be as at high a frequency as most other MTM speakers that we see out there, because that crossover point is necessarily lower than most other MTM horizontal speakers that we see out there. But yeah, the clippable measurements will look slightly different. That's unavoidable.
Anonymous. Thanks to mostly Rob's advice, Anonymous now has a Zidoo media player up and running, and they backed up over 250 discs. By default, the Zidoo's poster wall does not distinguish between DVD and Blu-ray. 4K Blu-rays get labeled as such automatically, but not DVD versus Blu-ray. And is there any way to fix that? I guess no.
So,
manually going through and changing it.
Well, I don't know. Because there's plugins and things that you can do to this system, and I haven't gone down that path at all. So I'm almost certain that with a system like this, because it's just an Android TV box at the end of the day, it's running Android inside of there. So I'm almost certain that somebody out there has written a little plugin that you can do that will solve this issue. I don't personally know where to point you for that sort of thing. What I do know you can do with the interface that just comes with the box is you can manually set up folders. So if you just go to the general poster wall that shows all movie content that you have on the box, that store in the storage, that's not going to change. But amongst that poster wall at the top, you can choose from manually created folders. So if you're willing to just say, okay, I create a DVD folder and a Blu-ray folder and a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray folder, and I manually sort my files into those, then you can go through that. I know you can do that in the native interface, but like I say, I'm betting somebody out there created a little plugin that does exactly this, because you're not the only person who would want to change like that. I only ever backed up 2 DVDs. I really only started backing up my personal collection with Blu-rays. So this just never popped up for me. I never even noticed. It's like, oh yeah, the 2 DVDs on my storage don't show up as anything different. But yeah, that was about it.
Yeah. So not every disc has successfully backed up. Is that just because of the Asus optical drive, which is the one that Rob recommended? Or is it just that some discs won't ever back up? He's thoroughly cleaned those discs, but some just won't complete. Any tips? So the only time I've ever had problems backing up discs is because of copy protection that were on them. But that shouldn't be the case here, right? Because you're doing a full ISO.
Yeah, full 1-to-1 using MakeMKV. So I will say occasionally it is the disk drive, because the people who are out there who have multiple disk drives from multiple different brands and that they'll describe the experiences where once in a while there's a disk that, one out of the multiple drives that they own, it manages to rip on that one drive and none of the other drives. So it's not out of the question that it has something to do with the optical disk drive itself. But typically what I've done in these scenarios, because that's happened to me too, and that this is a bit of a pitfall of this thing, is that not every single disk is going to successfully 1-to-1 backup. That's when I go ahead and do the actual make an MKV. because that rarely fails. So that is pressing the big button in the MakeMKV interface to open the disc, and then you can manually choose with a checklist, like, here is the movie file that I want to change into an MKV with these audio formats, with these subtitles. So yeah, the backside, the downside of that is that you don't have the full disc menu, so it's not the exact same experience as putting in a physical disc. It's just the movie file by itself, so it goes straight to the movie. And then if you want to retain the special features, each one of those is going to become its own separate MKV file, which, hey, that manual folder thing that you can do becomes very handy at that point, because you can make a folder for the movie and then have the movie and all the special features in there as MKV. So it's definitely more manual labor, but like you say, it's a small number of the total number of discs he's backed up. Some of them just didn't successfully do that. I would definitely give it a try making them into an actual MKV.
Okay, several of his DVDs play back in 4:3 aspect ratio by default. He can zoom in to fill the screen, but then they look extra blurry. Is there a better way?
Yes, this requires that as it is in progress playing. So you can't choose this setting before the video is actually playing, but as it's actually playing, the Zidoo player software has an aspect ratio setting. If you set that to fit instead of, I think it's original is the default. If you set it to fit instead, then it detects that, hey, this was an anamorphic DVD, and I should actually stretch this out to fill a 16:9 aspect ratio instead of keeping it a pillar boxed 4:3 and then black bars above and below that inside of it, making it a very small image that you would have to zoom if you're just using your TV's controls. So yeah, right. It has to be actively playing, and then you can bring up the options in the Zidoo player, go to the aspect ratio control, and choose fit.
I see what he's talking about. I was thinking it was a 4:3 movie, and he was trying to get rid of the black bars.
No, I mean,
if
it's 4:3, it's 4:3. But anamorphic DVDs, the pixels were encoded as rectangles instead of squares. That's how you got that anamorphic format. So by default, it's just shows you the square instead of the rectangle.
So the Zidoo menu often indicates the audio format is AC3. He asks, what is that? Is that equivalent to Atmos?
AC3 is the technical name for Dolby Digital, plain vanilla Dolby Digital. EAC3 is Dolby Digital Plus, and then you might see DT. What was it? DTH for Dolby True HD. That'll be the other one that you might see there. So yeah, that's all AC3 is. It means it's vanilla Dolby Digital. So it's not Atmos. Atmos would show up as either EAC3 or DTH, because Atmos is an extension on top of either Dolby Digital Plus or Dolby True HD.
So he does the disk backups on his computer and saves those files onto a portable hard drive. He then plugs the portable drive into Zidoo, then transfers the files to the Zidoo's internal hard drive. Mm-hmm. That was working flawlessly at first, but now it seems to stop partway through the transfer and he has to start over. The portable hard drive seems to have become unmounted at some point. He used to just do the transfer overnight, but now he feels like he has to babysit it. Any ideas?
Reboot.
Reformat?
No, don't have to reformat. You just got to reboot that box from the full actual reboot, not just they put it into standby and bring it back on. Like I say, it's just a little Android computer. So yeah, whatever it is, memory leaks or cache filling up or stuff like that, you just got to do a full. And you know what? Sometimes it's like the full unplug it from the wall, wait a few seconds and plug it back in type of reboot. But generally you can get it working again that way.
So overall, he's been happy with the new media server, but it isn't flawless. Some movies stutter, some get out of lip sync. He's had an audio glitch here and there. Will anything fix these occasional issues, or is this just the way it is?
I'm going to say, I think, realistically, it's just the way it is, because again, rebooting the box often helps, especially with some of those occasional glitches, the lip sync thing. And then the other one is, if you have a movie that just always has problems like that, again, instead of just relying on the one-to-one backup, I would go ahead and actually make an MKV of that one. The other one to be aware of, though, is that if you're playing back the ISO files or the BDMV file folders, the full one-to-one backups, that's exactly like playing the disc, the Zidoo actually gives you the option of take me straight to the movie, like when you click on the poster, you either take me straight to the movie or put me into the disc's menu, exactly like I put the disc in. And it's not a one size fits all. Sometimes one of them works smoothly and the other one doesn't, and it isn't always like the disc menu always works smoothly and the straight to the movie doesn't. Like, depending on what it is, it's one or the other. So try the other one if you get these glitches. Sometimes that's what it is. And then I will definitely say that the discs that the disc menu that comes up was done in Java, which is almost all regular Blu-rays, and then a whole bunch of Ultra HD Blu-rays too, but not all of them. But stuff that was done in Java often has problems. So yeah, in those cases, Take Me Straight to the Movie tends to work better.
All right. So we've mentioned using the Dolby Atmos height virtualization as a pretty good option when you physically only have 5 speakers. That's his case. He's got 5.2, but a Marantz receiver that can decode Atmos. He's noticed that one of the listening modes is called virtual. Is that the one to use? Or does he have to select Atmos as a listening mode in order to get Dolby Atmos height virtualization?
So you want to choose the Dolby Atmos listening mode. That will engage Dolby's own height virtualization. The virtual mode is Denon or Marantz's own thing. That's their listening mode. Like, they don't have all of the rock and concert and jazz and hall stuff anymore, but they have the virtual. And the virtual is their own brand up mixer. Make use of all my speakers regardless of what the original signal was. But that's a Dolby, that's a Denon or a Marantz thing, is that virtual mode. So if you want the Dolby Atmos height virtualization, you choose the Dolby Atmos listening mode, and it'll engage because it says, hey, I actually only have 5 floor level speakers. I don't have any physical upward firing or overhead speakers. So it's like, hey, the only way to make this Atmos is to use the height virtualizer, and it's automatic, and that's how it works.
Yeah. So we mentioned that a Denon receiver can have different settings that are strictly for 2-channel playback. Can his Marantz also do that? Is it the same as using the pure mode? It's not. No.
It's definitely not the pure mode.
Definitely not the pure mode, but there is, well, I don't know universally across Marantz, but many of them have the same menu structure or type of menus that the Denons have. So I would assume that Marantz's will have that same, you have to set your speaker size and even sometimes distances and types differently for your 2-channel.
Yeah, so it depends on which model of Marantz that you have, because it is not in all of them. It's in the higher end ones. So in the Marantz lineup, in the current lineup, it starts with the Cinema 40 and anything above that. Now, in Marantz's naming nomenclature, the lower the number, the higher it is in the model lineup. So there's the Cinema 40, the Cinema 30, and then the AV20 and the AV10 Pre-Pros. Right. Those are the ones that have this separate 2-channel playback dedicated settings. So the Cinema 50 and Cinema 60 and Cinema 70 do not have that setting. And then if you're going back a little ways, it was the SR7015 and up. And those ones, the numbers actually did go up the higher you went in the lineup. So the 8015 and then the AV77, what was it, 6 that they got up to, and the 8806, I think it was, whatever it was, the Pre-Pros, those had it, but everything below that, the 6015, the 5015, they did not have it. Denon's lineup, it's the X4800H, or going back a ways, the X4700H that had this feature. The 3800, the 3700 didn't have this separate 2-channel setting. So it only applies to the stereo listening mode. That's the only one that separate channel applies to. It doesn't apply to the direct or the pure direct or any of the up mixers. It's just the stereo listening mode only, and those models and up.
New question here. Csaba is what I'm going with. Csaba is how you pronounce this name. It looks like that. Anyways, Csaba came across Rob's 12-step guide to setting up dual subwoofers. He noted the instructions saying to set each sub output to 72 dB individually instead of 75 dB each, so that when they play together in unison, the combined output sums together as 75 dB. But his understanding is that doubling the number of subwoofers in a room ought to result in the sound pressure level increasing by 6 dB and not 3 dB. It's also what Google thinks. In case you're wondering, the AI is absolutely convinced that is true. In theory, that should be true, even in an anechoic environment, but in practice, he has set up several home theaters in different homes with different room sizes, and he's always had to adjust the gain down by 5 or 6 dB on each sub to get them to sum together to produce a 75 dB during calibration. Going back to the theoretical, if you use RoomEQ Wizard simulation tool, it predicts a 6 dB higher output when using 2 subwoofers instead of just 1, except at the particular frequencies in the particular locations where there are sound wave cancellations happening, and that is regardless of room size. So what is he missing here is saying each of the 2 subs should be set 3 dB lower, just a simple mistake in the 12-step guide? It is not.
I mean, it's a simplification. I'll certainly go that far.
Yeah. He's noted that adding a third sub only seems to increase the total summed output by 3 dB versus the output when using 2 subs. So how does all that work? So in theory, if you want to get, if you were to, and like Rob said, this is a simplification, but
yes,
generally speaking, if you take 2 of the exact same subs and you put them on top of each other, they are co-located.
Or side by side works too.
Or side by side, yes. I often say on top of each other because people, if I say side by side, they're like, well, they're not exactly co-located. Okay. In the frequencies that we're talking about, they are kind of co-located. In fact, in my room, where I'll have 2 subwoofers across the room from each other, they are co-located.
And that's where this comes into play. Yeah. Yeah.
So generally speaking, if you were to put them on top of each other, you would get a 6 dB increase in volume output, but with the same, input, basically, because because the subwoofers both playing the same notes at the same time, they would reinforce each other and blah, blah, blah. When you separate them across the room from each other, that no longer is the case. In theory, you get only a 3 dB increase in output by having 2 subwoofers that are not co-located. But as I just said, in my room, they're going to be across the room from each other, but the room is relatively small. So, or like many times you see, and I've seen this happen in YouTube videos from people who are experts who have a subwoofer on either side of their TV, and they're like, I'm only supposed to get 3 dB extra output, but I'm getting 6 dB extra output. That's because these subs are so good. No, your TV is not as big as you think it is, and your subs are co-located. They are right next to each other as far as the base frequencies are concerned. Yeah. So, in general, you have to pick a number. You have to pick something.
Yeah, well, that's why I say it was a simplification in my guide. Yeah. Absolutely, it was a simplification.
But you have to pick a number that is closer to reality than another number. And the reason why 3 dB in my mind is closer to reality than 6 dB, meaning that you should, instead of saying you should lower set each sub's output to 72 dB, you should set it down at 69 dB. Okay, 72 is closer to what's really happening in this room versus the 6 dB, which is not usually what's really happening in many rooms, especially since many rooms are bigger than mine or some of these other things.
I wrote that guide to be about as short as I could personally make it, which means I had no idea what room size this is being applied to.
Yes.
So, I mean, the thing is here, whether it's a 3 dB, 4 dB, 5 dB, 6 dB increase that you get by adding an additional subwoofer to the first one in whatever room you're working in, it's frequency dependent. That's the thing. Because the very long wavelengths, basically, if the subs are separated by a good portion more than a half of the wavelength apart from each other, then they're not going to get the full 6 dB doubling up. But if they're closer together than a half wavelength distance, and keep in mind, 20 hertz is a 55-foot long wavelength. So in most homes, if it's an enclosed room of any kind, at 20 hertz, those subs are co-located no matter where you put them in an enclosed room inside of a house for the most part. But at a higher frequency, say 80 hertz, you could definitely have a room that's big enough where they're no longer acoustically co-located, where there really is definitely greater than a half wavelength spread physically between those 2 subwoofers. So then if you go and measure those, you're going to be like, well, I didn't get a full 6 dB doubling up. Yes. What do I do? So my simplification was, I don't know the room size. Somebody might be doing this in a great room and putting it across, 2 different sidewalls in a great room. Big distance going on there. And then, because the frequency, it might change depending on the frequencies. I'm like, so if you set it, each sub's 3 dB lower, you set them to 72. Few things happen there. One, there's no room correction program that's going to have an issue with that, right? Now, almost everybody who's doing the room correction program is putting a manual tipped up response in the bass anyway, so it's only going to help you there. And then the other part of it is if it's something like Odyssey, it does that check beforehand, right? It's like, hey, are your subwoofers loud enough individually before I go ahead and put this together? And it's like, well, I don't want to fall into this is too quiet red zone, but if I put it at 72, it's not really going to have a problem because it's say, hey, if that was the only sub I'm working with, I could boost it up to 75, no problem. But then, turns out there's actually 2 subs working together, and And hey, if they came out to, oh my goodness, 77 instead of 75, or even 78 instead of 75, there's still not going to be any problem with any room correction program working within those parameters. So as a trying to distill all of that guide down to as simple and short sentences as I know how to do, I'm like, like I said, very simplified, but it's the safe thing to say. If I do 3 dB, I'm not going to run into any situations where someone said, hey, my room was actually big enough that when I put the subs across the room from each other, like you said to do, if I had said lower it by 6, somebody's going to come back and say they're too quiet. Yeah. But if I say by 3, almost nobody is going to come back and say they're too quiet.
So that's... in my mind, that's why I think that this is the right way to go. And the reason is because, they're going to double check, especially with Denon and Odyssey, or I guess Marantz, but anybody with Odyssey. Odyssey is going to flash a green or red or whatever up on there and give you the idea. And having 3, being down 3 for both the subs, it might make you a little bit too loud, but again, it can work within that range. It's not going to be, it's going to be, up to 3 dB too loud, let's say, on top of that. And it can lower that down. Odyssey can deal with that.
Very easily.
But if you're at 6 dB and too low, and your subs are not co-located way across from each other, then you might be 3 in some frequencies. You might even be lower than 6 dB too low from each other. So it's.
But, if you're the person who's, almost always putting both subs at the front of the room, those subs are co-located for virtually all of the frequencies that they're playing.
Yes.
If you've mostly worked in, like, reasonably sized enclosed rooms, right? Not really large enclosed rooms, even if you had them across the room from each other, you're absolutely right. I would expect that, yes, almost all the time in those scenarios, I'm going to get a 6 dB boost because effectively they are acoustically co-located, those two subs, even physically across the room from each other. So you're not wrong. You're in no way wrong about that. Your experience was not lying. And if you want to say that, hey, it's a mistake in the 12-step guide, like, okay, if you want to use that word, but I'm just going to say it's a simplification and one that is pretty safe advice to give because it's almost never going to result in a problem for anybody.
And that's the other side of it, like when you're trying to write something for the masses and not for an individual person, you want to err on the side where it won't make people mad. Right. Or I did what you said and my subwoofers were way too quiet.
Or cause your auto setup to give you a message that something needs to be changed that is in conflict with what my guide says to do. Right? That's going to be more of a question and a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the side you want to err on. It's what's way. If when you go to buy a car and they tell you the gas mileage on the side of the car or or whatever, they err on the side of this is best case scenario going down a hill on with the right air pressure or whatever they come out with. I've never gotten the gas mileage and I've always felt cheated. They should err on the other side.
They should err on the other side, and everyone goes, hey, I got better than they claimed. That's amazing.
Better than they claimed, right? And that's going back to what I think I said last week or whatever about Harman maybe coming back with receivers. We'll go back to those real watts, right? Where they only claim 20 watts on their AV receiver, but they're real. They're real. Rohan. After a discussion regarding his problematic AV receiver last week, the one whose speaker outputs keep going silent during playback but no repair shop has been able to replicate or fix, Rohan has decided to replace the whole darn thing with a new receiver. His wife just doesn't know about it yet. Don't blame us. We didn't tell you to do that.
Well, we kind of suggested that it might be about the only thing you can do at this point. Yeah.
I didn't say you had to. I just said it was the only thing that was probably going to fix it.
You can point to me, Rohan. You can tell your wife to blame me. I'll take the
You're
heat.
A country away, son.
That's right.
The direct replacement model would be the Marantz Cinema 50, but that is too expensive now. And on top of that, he's just not eager to get either a Marantz or a Denon at this point due to his most recent Marantz receiver being such a pain to deal with for the last 2 years. So price-wise, he's including the Denon X3800H on this list of potential candidates, but it's his very last choice, and he's sort of loath to do it. He's included the Yamaha Avantage RX-A4A on his list, even though it's hard to say, and as it fits fits within his potential budget, but the receiver that interests him most is the Onkyo RZ30. Speaker-wise, he's just using 5.1 configuration, focal chorus towers and center up front, Dolly's Zensor 1 surrounds, and the SVS PB1000 Pro subwoofer. His TV is an LG C2 OLED, and the sources are NVIDIA Shield Pro and the Panasonic UB420 Ultra HD Blu-ray player. Part of why he's even willing to consider the Denon X3800H is because he really does not want to take any step backwards when it comes to room correction. He was really very pleased with the Odyssey Multi-Q XT32, and he especially appreciated Odyssey Dynamic EQ. So that's going to be a problem.
Curves of equal loudness. Yes, indeed. That is why I made sure to highlight that in the write-up.
Yeah, so he's noted that the Onkyo RZ30 includes Dirac Live room correction full bandwidth, so you can pay to add Dirac Live bass control. He has no intention to pay extra after the price of the receiver itself, regardless of which one he gets.
Plus, he only has one sub, so that would be a very little use, the Dirac Live bass control in that.
Let's all remember this moment when he says he has no intention of paying more for the Dirac Live bass control, because when he does get it, we can all point and laugh. So Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 versus Dirac Live room correction. What's that going to be like if he makes the switch? And how would YPow RSC with multi-point and precision EQ compare if we were to get the Yamaha model? Well, Dirac Live bass control doesn't have curves of equal loudness. Never has.
Dirac Live room correction. Yeah, well, Dirac Live in general, they just, at this point, I feel it's kind of strange, but they don't have the automatic curves of equal loudness. It's not something they offer as part of their suite.
I don't know why they're so resistant to it, but yes, they don't have it. And the only way that we've seen or we've recommended that you can get something like that is to do the calculations yourself or use a Room EQ Wizard, come up with a curve for specific volume levels, and then change the room correction to that when you're at those volume levels.
Yeah, because it has at least 3 save slots. I think that Onkyo actually has 4 different save slots. So, at the push of a couple of buttons, you can change between 3 at minimum. And I think it's 4 different presets that you've made, like your own target curves that you've made for Dirac.
Doesn't that sound convenient, by the way?
Yeah, it's not. It's certainly not automatic the way Dynamic EQ is. The other thing is that is a THX certified Onkyo receiver. So if you use the THX listening modes, it does have THX loudness plus, which is a form of curves of equal loudness. But not everybody loves the THX listening modes because they do some other processing in the surround speakers as well. However, you're just a 5-speaker setup, not a 7. So the bit of weirdness that the THX listening modes do between the surround and surround back speakers doesn't apply to your setup. So this might be enough for you, right? Using the THX listening mode with Dirac Live, that gives you the combination in a different way, but very similar end results. Dirac Live room correction, certainly capable of sounding every bit as good as Odyssey Multi-Q XT32, so no problems there. But the setup process is, I would say, a little more user-intensive, a little less user-friendly. The biggest one to me is that actually getting your trim levels set so that 0 dB on the volume dial will equal cinema reference volume. That's done automatically in Odyssey. In Dirac, you have every opportunity to make 0 dB on the volume dial something other than cinema reference volume, because you can change the gain of the microphone you're using, you can change the gain of each speaker, you can change the relative gain between those two things, so winding up with it being at calibrated cinema reference volume is not a given. It might take some trial and error and back and forth to get that result, if that's even what you want. But yeah, you can, if you're willing to put a little more work in, you can get exactly the same results, or maybe results you like even better with Dirac Live room correction. So it's not that it can't be done, just be aware it's not going to be as user-friendly. If we're going over to YPow reflected sound control with multi-point and precision EQ, they do have YPow volume, which is the same thing as dynamic EQ. It's curves of equal loudness. It's just the Yamaha version of it. So they have something that can do what you want as far as the dynamic EQ functionality goes.
I'm comfortable recommending Yamaha's YPow in the RSC.
As long as it's the RSC with multi-point version, which it is in the one that he's considering. So I don't think you actually have a genuinely bad choice out of any of these. But what I'm going to say to you, because the next question is going to make me say, you should probably just get the Denon. And like, you had a Denon that worked great for you for 10 years, and then you had a Marantz that unfortunately gave you problems for 2 years. So to say I'm going to swear off of both Denon and Marantz, like I wouldn't separate them. I wouldn't say Denon good, Marantz bad. Like, no, it's, you unfortunately got a bit of a lemon with that last receiver, but that can happen with an Onkyo, that can happen with a Yamaha. So I'm not saying that, like, I don't understand where you're coming from, but I'm just going to try to encourage you to say, don't swear off Denon and Marantz. It's, you got a bad experience. I don't blame you for feeling that way. That's totally understandable. But I don't think it's worth swearing off of Denon and Marantz.
So another consideration is that he did get used to using HEOS with his Marantz receiver. He liked being able to wirelessly send music stored on his phone to the receiver via Wi-Fi rather than just Bluetooth. Can the Onkyo and Yamaha offer? What can they offer on that front?
Right.
I'm going to get coffee while you answer this. So
for sure.
Stretch it out.
Okay. They cannot offer HEOS, right? It's going to be a different app because HEOS belongs to Sound United. So it's on Denon and Marantz. It's not on Onkyo or Yamaha. So you would, at the very least, have to get a different app. And so those things combined, right? I'm like, if you already like HEOS, if you have anything else in your house that also uses HEOS still, if you already liked Odyssey Multi-Q XC32 and you liked Odyssey Dynamic EQ, that's where I'm like, hey, maybe you just stick with the Denon and you get the X3800H, and now you don't have to learn whole new processes for any of this. I don't know how much you enjoy learning new processes, right? So it's going to be one of those things. It's like, hey, if I really value my time and not having to learn a whole new app and a whole new way of doing my room correction, then I think getting the X3800H is the right way to go. But if you're like, hey, I actually enjoy learning the new app and learning the new room correction, then switching might make more sense for you. So that's entirely up for you to decide. I'm just giving you that info. So Onkyo, if you use their Onkyo Control app, so Denon has and Marantz, they have separate apps, right? They have the control app, which replicates the remote control and then gives you some other things that work kind of like the web interface. And then they have the separate HEOS app that's just for the whole house audio. With the Onkyo, it's the Onkyo control app is mostly the remote and the web controls that you can access through it. But you can just from your phone to that AV receiver send things over Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth, because it can just basically as a folder structure see what music is stored on your phone. So it's not the same as HEOS. It's not a whole house audio solution. It's not even a full catalog what's on your phone and put it in a shared type of situation. It's just from phone to Onkyo receiver, one-to-one. What's stored on my phone can play on that Onkyo receiver via Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth. If that's all you want to do, it can do that capability. The other thing is the Onkyos are Sonos Connect ready, but that does require a separate little Sonos bridge device that you have to plug in, which costs about $600. So I don't think that's necessarily the best solution, but if it's really just phone to receiver, the Onkyo can do it with the Onkyo Control app. Yamaha has MusicCast. MusicCast, I still like very much. They haven't really...
MusicCast was very popular back in the day.
It sure was. It was my number one for a long time. They haven't really done a ton with it in the past several years. So I'm not as in love with MusicCast, but I still I wouldn't tell anyone to stay away from it. So MusicCast is very akin to HEOS. It's going to be a new app. It's going to be a new interface. You'll have to learn where the buttons are positioned, but everything you could do in HEOS, you can do in MusicCast. My only question is, what else do you have in the house? If you already have other HEOS things in the house, I wouldn't go to the expense and the hassle of getting away from that. So essentially, I'm not saying there's a bad choice amongst any of these. You can get to where you want to be with any of these three. It's just be aware that there's going to be more changes that you have to learn and more time spent learning those changes with some of these choices than the others.
And that's tough because when you make a change, no matter what that change is, there's always a learning curve. And even going from your Marantz to a Denon or whatever, there would always be somewhat of a learning curve. It's just going to be smaller, fewer things to learn. But you, of course, could do any of them, but you should get the Denon. Infinite Gary. So this Panasonic UB9000 Ultra HD Blu-ray player that now refused to output any sort of HDMI video signal is puzzling. Mm-hmm. Sure is puzzling. Is there any method he could use to figure out if his HDMI port is straight up dead other than plugging it into different TVs? He did find a $60 Chipmunk HDMI tester tool, but the website says it's out of stock and they aren't even accepting orders for it right now. Plus, he wasn't seriously considering it anyways. But would that be about the only other way? What about adding an a wireless HDMI transmitter? Could that allow him to bypass the faulty HDMI output? No, because you have to plug it into the HDMI output. make that
Yep.
work.
Yeah, the wireless HDMI transmitter, you would be using the very same currently faulty HDMI output from the UB9000 to go into the wireless transmitter, so that is not a solution,
I don't know.
unfortunately.
I don't really remember what we talked about with this question, but I mean, it's most likely the HDMI port connection to the board has somehow been damaged. And these things are not I cannot do it. So when I say they're relatively easy to fix, understand it's because I watched a bunch of videos of a guy who rehabs old PlayStations and Xboxes, and one of the main things he does is replace HDMI ports because that's one that and the power port are the ones that break most often. Yep. So it didn't look that hard to me, but I wasn't the one doing it, and I can't imagine that that's going to be other than them having to chase back any other problems it may have with it. You could just take it in and say, hey, can you check the HDMI port? Right. And if it's bad, replace it. And if it's not bad, if it looks fine, if it looks like it's not bad, then don't do anything with it. Yeah. You're still going to end up paying, but $50 or $100 for them to even look at it. But at least then you'll know. Because I kind of feel like that's what I would do.
The only other HDMI port testing devices that I was aware of, I had no idea of this $60 Chipmunk one even existed, although it kind of doesn't exist since you can't even order it at this point. But the only other ones I knew were like the Meridio test devices, which are hundreds or thousands of dollars, so definitely not a cheaper solution. So yes, HDMI thing, testers do exist. I guess there's the Fox and Hound tester, which is like $350 or $400 or something like that. But definitely more than $60. So it's not a cheaper solution than getting a repair or replacement.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking at this thing like
it's a very simple little device.
It's
but
a very simple.
It could be handy.
Yeah. For all the one time you're going to, for the $60 you would have spent on this, you can have somebody look at it.
Right.
Who knows what they're looking at? Jason thanked us for examining the measurements he took after replacing his pair of Velodyne subs with a new pair of Tone Winner D4000 subs. So I don't remember. This picture always throws me off because
it's the before and after, but you got the sideways oriented D4000 now that you said looks better, and I agree. He's got one at the back of the room too.
It's the tower speakers. Is it a shadow or something on the side that makes me think they're weird? I don't know. There's something about that picture that throws me off. So, first, to clear up any confusion, the most recent measurements he took with the Velodynes had them positioned in the middle of the front wall, in the cubby below the TV, and the middle of the back wall. So that's the same placement as the new pair of Tone Winner subs in both sets of measurements. He is using a Y splitter and he has his AV receiver set to only one output, to output only to one subwoofer. The measurements were taken after running Odyssey, and he did manually adjust Odyssey settings so that all speakers are set to small and they all have an 80 hertz crossover frequency. The measurements he has shared are cropped to show from 200 hertz down to 10 hertz, but he was measuring the output of both subwoofers plus the front, left, and right speakers all playing together. So first things first, based on our discussions and our most recent advice, when he simply replaced his pair of subwoofers and reran Odyssey, the previous big and genuinely audible dip below 80 hertz was gone, but there was still a visible dip right in the crossover region. So he's showing this now with these two measurements that we saw before.
The Velodynes before rolling off well below 20 hertz, and then a big old dip like 75, 80 hertz, and then he just swapped them. He just replaced them, did rerun Odyssey, but just swapped them over, and it's like, hey, that 75, 80 hertz dip is gone, but now there's a new dip at 90 hertz, but now we're getting full extension down to 20 hertz.
Right. So we wondered aloud, how much flatter do you want it to be? But since the remaining dip was right in the crossover region, we said he could try manually adjusting the distance setting for the single subwoofer output directly on this AV receiver, or he could try raising or lowering the crossover frequency. We also said he could use the Odyssey Editor app, including after having already taken measurements with it, without having to do a whole new set of measurements, to manually change the target curve for the subwoofer output to give him a little bit more output right down to 20 hertz. So given that his initial measurements with his Tone Winner subs was so consistent across his three-seater couch, he decided to just focus on the middle primary seat, and he did a little trial and error. He found that by manually increasing the subwoofer distance setting in his receiver, the remaining dip at 90 hertz disappeared. Way. He also added a small boost to the target curve from 55 to 20 hertz, and now his bass below 150 hertz all measures about as even as flat as he could ever reasonably hope for. Overall, he's pleased with the results. So here's the measurements. I'm sure you're seeing them either on the Flickr album or in the YouTube video.
We've got showing the, so this is in both instances here with the tone winner subs now, not the Velodynes anymore, but the blue line on there is what happened with, you just ran Odyssey, manually changed it to small speakers and 80 hertz crossover, but just ran Odyssey. And it's like, okay, we're seeing this dip at about 90 hertz, and then this very slight roll off down towards 20 hertz. But he's like, yep, did the changes in the Odyssey editor app, and by our advice, manually changed the subwoofer distance setting. He said it only took by 3 feet. Right, that's what he ended up changing it. So about 3, what is it? 3 milliseconds? How does that go? Whatever it is. But yeah, that's made those changes manually, and here we go. It's a nearly ruler flat line now, all the way down to.
But of course, he went ahead and measured the other 2 seats of his couch, and he was surprised to see that the lines are no longer as close to being superimposed as they were prior to him manually changing the subwoofer distance setting. I'm not surprised by that, but they are still pretty
very similar shape, but not quite superimposed anymore.
So this is no biggie. It's not even really audible. It's not audible, but he is just curious as to understand as to why that could have happened. I mean, you're changing the distance setting, so that's changing like when the sound is leaving the subwoofers and then interacting
versus the speakers. Yeah,
versus the speakers. So you're getting some more cancellation and less reinforcement here in some places. Overall, it's better.
Yes.
Overall, it's a better
and
line.
That's the point.
And that's
overall,
the point.
It's better.
But they're not as superimposed. So, okay. I mean, we can't have perfect. So this is as close as you're going to get, because that looks pretty dang good to me.
Yeah, because this is essentially 4 bass-producing things that we're looking at here, and you've changed the relative phase between 2 of those bass-producing things and the other 2 bass-producing things. So similar to what we're trying to do when we're trying to achieve the most uniform response we can between, say, 2 subwoofers just on their own, this is the point of measuring in the 3 different seats, is to try and get that as close to uniform as we can. So, yep, now we've done a relative phase change between a pair of bass producing things and another pair of bass producing things. You've ended up with fantastic response, exactly what you want in your center seat, but the front, left, and right seats, they got a little bit quieter right in that crossover region, but certainly nothing to complain about. But that's the explanation. Yeah.
So since the graphs he has shared are showing the 2 subs plus the front, left, and right speakers all playing together, was he missing a critical step this whole time? Should he be measuring just the subwoofers on their own without the front, left, and right speakers included? I mean, you could have. So, what probably would have happened, I mean, we don't know because you didn't do it. But you may have gotten a perfectly straight line from somewhere just a little south of 80 hertz down to 20 hertz because you don't have the reinforcement of the speakers that are playing a little bit below 80 hertz. You would have seen a little maybe roll off towards the top end of that. With the subwoofers playing by themselves. And then you would have added in the speakers, and then maybe all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there's this big suck out at 90 hertz that wasn't there just a few minutes ago.
That's right.
What happened? Yeah. Now I have to change. Then you would have focused on the speakers as being the problem. Right? And now you're like, well, what do I do to EQ my speakers to make this not happen anymore? And so could you have done it that way? Absolutely. Maybe it could have led you down the wrong path to the fix, because of the order of operations that you did.
That's really it. Yeah.
So since it's never the case that your speakers are not engaged in the content while your subwoofers are engaged in the content, it seems like you should always play them together because that's the way they're actually going to operate.
Sure.
So I feel like this was the best way to go. Could you have done them separately? Could you have gotten could you have said, hey, I'm going to measure my speakers. I'm going to EQ them so that they are perfectly flat down to 80 hertz and then measure my subwoofers and make sure they're perfectly flat up to 80 hertz. And then I'm going to play them both at the same time and they'll be perfectly flat at 80 hertz, and then you would have been like, "Oh, yes. Strange things are afoot." The Circle K. So yeah, I feel like this is the way to go. what you did was right.
So yeah, I mean, I want to say from my perspective, you did nothing wrong. You didn't like miss some really critical step. In a way, you sort of skipped to the end. You always would have taken these measurements if you're a I rely on measurements person. Right. It's just that, yeah, the reason why I talk about only measuring just the 2 subwoofers on their own, maybe even measuring each subwoofer one at a time at the very beginning, is just, it is that order of operations thing of, when I see something that needs to be corrected, I don't want to have to guess at why, so that I know which adjustment to make. If I know every step in the process individually as I go along and I keep adding to it one at a time, well, then I know it's the addition of something that created the new thing that needs to be corrected, rather than having to work my way backwards and kind of guess at it. So, yeah, you just... In one way, you're taking more measurements multiple times, so that's obviously more work in one sense. Yeah. In the other one, it's like, well, if I'm working backwards and I guess right the first time, then I made myself less work. But if I didn't guess right the first time, then I have to make another guess, and I don't have the previous existing isolated data to work with, so it's a bit of a guessing game, and I might end up doing more work that way. So, no, you didn't do anything wrong. You just kind of skipped to the end and then had to work backwards instead of being at the beginning and guaranteeing you have to do maximum amount of measurements and work.
Yeah. So as we can see, there are still dips above 150 hertz. The center seat and left seat aren't too terrible, but the right seats show some very sharp dips. And all 3 seats below show dips right around the same 2 frequencies. They're above the crossover frequency of the subs, so is there simply nothing to be done about those remaining dips below 200 hertz, or is there more things you could try? There are pretty big dips.
So first of all, the very sharp dips in the right seat, I know they look scary and bad, but they're actually a good thing when it comes to whether you hear them or not. Yeah. Because since they're so steep and narrow, the chances
Q factor is what we call that. The Q factor is the width of the frequencies that are being affected by the dip. So if you look at it, it's like almost like a needle. It's very specific. Yeah. It's very specific. So, when you see those very specific dips, it's like you're missing one frequency, or in this case, 5 frequencies. Yeah. So
in integer numbers anyway.
Yeah, in integer numbers. Is that really going to affect the entire sound that you are experiencing in that frequency range? Between, even if you're listening to notes like sweeps back and forth from 100 to 200, back and forth, if you're missing like 5, you're like, well, did it get quiet there for a second as it was doing a sweep? Exactly. Well, I guess technically it was, but you still had 95% of the sounds, so that's not so bad.
Yeah, the narrow little needle-like spikes are scary looking on the graph, and actually less scary to me in terms of whether they're going to be any sort of issue when you're listening to stuff, because the chances of real-world content sustaining just that note and nothing else, it's like, chances are this really isn't going to be any sort of issue. Plus, most sounds in most soundtracks, including music, it's like, it's not just coming from one speaker alone, or for just that one seat. So it's less of a problem than it appears to be, because it looks much scarier than it really is. The other side of it is, though, you've always measured both subs together and both front, left, and right speakers together. I'm going to encourage you, since you like to put your mind at ease with the visual graph, what happens if you play just the front left speaker plus both subs? And what happens when you play just the front right speaker and both subs, not the front left and right speakers together? Because where these cancellations are predominantly coming from is the left and right speakers playing together. Like, those spikes should be there whether the subs are playing or not. And that's where we go back to the whole, hey, if I measure each thing one at a time and then each combination and then keep adding to those combinations, I'm going to see all that data as I go, and I'm going to know where those scary looking graphs came from. Again, here we're working our way backwards, but I'll bet you if you measure just the front left plus the 2 subs and just the front right plus the 2 subs, those scary spikes might not be there, because the interaction that's creating those spikes is most likely between the front left and right speakers themselves. So what could potentially be done about that? Honestly, I don't think you need to do anything about it, but that's where it's like,
bad.
Yeah, it's a similar thing. It's a phase relationship between the front left speaker and the front right speaker that's causing that. So physically moving them slightly, adjusting even toe in shouldn't matter at this lower frequency, but slightly moving their physical positions. You can even, if you want to get scary about it, because it could mess up your imaging, but ever so slightly offsetting their distance settings, front left versus front right manually, very, very slightly, because that can mess up your phantom center imaging.
But me, I would be looking at acoustic panels
panels.
Yeah,
but they have to be thick. We're talking below 200 hertz. So we're talking 8-inch thick panels, which is probably why it wasn't solved, even by the corner bass traps that you have.
Yeah. So yes, lastly, what content do we use to show off our systems to other people? Nothing these days. All of my stuff got flooded and thrown out. So I used to use all the same stuff that everybody else would use, which is Lord of the Rings, like the Oliphant, whatever it's called.
Sure.
Scene, the flyover for Atmos in Attack of the Clones at the very beginning. I like stuff I can find easily. Let's start with that.
Sure.
There's plenty of. There was a. I wish I still had that disc too. It makes me sad. A Porcupine Tree live disc.
Right.
That was nuts for music. And in fact, all the Porcupine Tree stuff is, recorded in surround and everything else. So it's very good for music and getting that sort of immersive experience. And again, I wish I still had all those discs. I probably didn't have to throw them all away, but I did because it was easier to
it was
emotionally
also
deal with.
Sewage type damage.
Yeah.
So, yes. Better to get rid of those.
I will tell you, my autistic brother didn't. He cleaned every single one of them by hand, but he's also autistic and unemployed. So, So I use like many of the normal things that you would expect. Nothing super specific and fancy, other than I would sometimes tailor things to what people are really interested in. So I did have some live recordings of. Like Diana Krall and on Blu-ray, as well as some DVD audio and DTS music discs that were specifically created to demo things. I also had like THX demo discs and Dolby demo discs that I got at conferences that I could sometimes use and let people play around with. But yeah, that's what I would do.
All right. I always put on Chris Body in Boston. Fantastic live concert recording. It's on Blu-ray. It's not in Atmos, but it's just fantastic recording, musical recording, and a wide selection of genres. So whatever guest is over, there's something in that concert that is probably going to appeal to them. Then the other one, if I just want to show off some bass tactile feeling rumbles, I hate this movie, but oh my goodness, does it have the crazy scene with some insane tactile basses, Transformers Age of Extinction. I really don't like that movie, but when whatever the new bad guy, I always forget his name, when he shows up and he like drops the things that petrifies everything, he drops the bombs that like petrify everything in its place.
This movie. Yes, go on.
Insane tactile bass if you want to show that off. So yeah, I do that. And then I very often go for The Dark Knight, just because it's such a fantastic movie and the soundtrack is really strong and it's good demo material. Not too many people miss that. Also, the opening space battle scene in Revenge of the Sith. That's always a crowd pleaser.
Chad, where are we at?
I know we're over 2 hours, but I really would like to answer Chad's because it could be time sensitive, so it's not that long.
We'll get Chad done, and then we're going to be done. That's it. Chad's work schedule is such that for around 6 months out of the year, he's only home on the weekends. During the work week for those 6 months, he's in an apartment, but it can involve moving locations multiple times. So he's looking to get a compact, easy to transport TV with a 2.0 speaker system. TV speakers alone just can't cut it for him anymore, but he needs to be able to pick up and go quickly and easily. He's an assassin.
You never know.
Could be.
What do we think TV-wise? He'll continue using his NVIDIA Shield, so the built-in apps really don't matter to him. Do we think he should get a small OLED?
Well, I mean,
I would love to say yes, but I would also love to have you not spend a bunch of money on a TV that's going to immediately break.
I mean, they're not that bad. Like price wise, like if you go for one of the B5s in the 48-inch size, I don't know if that's small enough, because I think to get the 42, you have to go to the C series. But like, this is the thing, below 55 inches, getting a really good looking TV below 55 inches, it's like there kind of is OLED, and maybe the Samsungs that cost every bit as much as an OLED to be a mini LED backlit LCD at the 50 or smaller inch screen size. So I'm pretty good with you getting either a B or a C series 48 or 42 inch, whatever size you need. And then, yes, they are very, very thin and light at that point. Like I have a 42 inch OLED that is essentially like a computer monitor. So, yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with it. They're so skinny that, that's probably Tom's concern, is that if you're just putting it in the back of a truck, then that's you might want to make a little flight case for it or something so that it's going to be safe. But in terms of being small and light, they don't get much smaller and lighter. And then image quality wise, nothing can compare at below 55 inches. Nothing is going to come close. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay, sorry. I am stuck on this website.
Okay.
I finished. So what should he get for the 2.0 sound system? He was sort of eyeing the Ascend, Sierra, Luna speakers since they're so compact, but you also need some sort of AV receiver to power them. Is there a compact receiver that would be up to the task? And do we think the Lunas would be a good speaker choice? So we're assuming, because it's a small TV, that he's sitting very close to it. Sure. We don't know that it's a small TV and that he's actually sitting very close to it. So, but what he does need is something that can accept an HDMI input, basically, because he's going out for his NVIDIA Shield. Yeah. And then he wants to be able to pass it through. So generally speaking, when you ask me for a small, compact speaker system, I'm looking at, I'm thinking of something like the CAF.
Like the LS50s or the LSX2?
The LSX2 LTs is what I'm looking at right now. I'm glancing at them. I'm trying to see the back of these stupid things.
They're pretty expensive. They're not cheap.
They're $1,000 a set. But the Lunas aren't exactly cheap.
Oh yeah, either. No, they're right up there. And then you'd have to add an external amplifier of some sort to power them. Yeah.
With these, what you would end up needing, I'm trying to figure out how you would connect all this, because you would have to go from...
Well, you could certainly do optical if it doesn't have HDMI ARC.
Yeah, I hate HDMI ARC. I'm sure it has HDMI ARC, though.
I mean, for stereo, it works very perfectly fine. For either built-in or single HDMI source plugged into the TV, HDMI ARC works perfectly fine. So that's going to be the solution in most cases. Yeah, I mean, my first thought was... First of all, as much as I love Ascend and the Luna speakers, I don't really think they're the greatest choice here, because they are very bass shy and they are very output limited. They're great for the satellite situations where you want to use them, but for being just your pair of speakers, given the price point on them and what you might want to get out of these, I don't really think they're the optimal, certainly not value choice, and they might just not be the optimal sound quality choice regardless. Yeah. So yeah, again, my first thought was to very similar idea, self-powered speakers, right? That's what makes sense to me here.
These ones do have an HDMI ARC, they have a Toslink, they have USB Type-C, they have an Ethernet connection, they have another Type-C. I don't know what that one's for.
Now, probably the thing is, though, like the KEF LSX version 2 and whatever comes after that in the model name there, I mean, they're not the most bass capable or output capable speakers either. They're really quite similar to the Lunas in both of those regards. And then there's the larger KEF LS50, it'd be the KEF LS50 Metas at this point. But those are getting pretty darn spendy. Pretty darn expensive. And, I mean, size-wise, they're just a nice compact bookshelf speaker. That's a 5.25-inch driver that is concentric with the tweeter in the middle of it. So it's about as small as a speaker of that size can get, but just that little bit more bass capable, not particularly output capable. But yeah, what's the LS50 wireless, right, is the special name.
LS50 is a wireless 2 now.
There it is. Yeah, that's the one with the metamaterial backing behind the tweeter on that one.
On the website, it's $1,000 off right now, which is should give you pause. It's $2,000 for a pair.
Still $2,000 for the pair. Yeah. So. along similar capabilities, but at a lower price point. One that definitely leaps to mind, Fluence. They're relatively new RI71 self-powered speakers. Now, they have a folded ribbon tweeter, so if you were drawn to that ribbon tweeter instead of a dome tweeter that's offered in the Luna, although the Luna is available with either a dome tweeter or the RAL ribbon tweeter, but if you're kind of drawn to that difference in tweeter design, these do have a folded ribbon tweeter that goes in there. They were recently reviewed over on Audioholics and very favorably so. So I'm a pretty big fan of these RI71 speakers. I know that Andrew over at AV Gadgets also a big fan of these Fluence RI71 self-powered speakers. So these do have an HDMI ARC port on the back of them. Interestingly, these ones do not have an optical port on the back of them, and they also do not have a USB audio input. So some people really don't like that, but these really are kind of meant to be instead of a soundbar, I have this pair of speakers, and the HDMI ARC port is kind of what it's all about. So $500 for the pair, your choice of 3 different finish options as well. So those are ones that I would definitely consider, and price-wise, we know it can't be a problem. If you were considering the Lunas, these definitely aren't a problem price-wise for you. And then if you did really want that optical input, that USB audio input, and you didn't like the looks of these ones for some reason, then Kanto, they have ones that I like quite a bit called the REN, the Kanto Ren. Again, a whole bunch of different finish options. They're a little bit more expensive at $700 a pair. But yeah, very similar capabilities. They do still have HDMI ARC, and then these ones also give you the USB input and the optical input if you want them. So those two are probably the ones that I'm going to recommend the most. They're not quite as small as the Lunas. I will mention the Kanto Ren is not as physically heavy as the Fluence. The Fluence is about 14 pounds for the pair of them, whereas the Kanto Ren is right around 11 pounds for the pair of them. The Lunas are like 8.5 pounds or something like that. Or that might be each speaker. Sorry, not pair, but each speaker. So you're looking at about 8.5 pounds, around 10.5 to 11 pounds for the Rens, and then around 14 pounds each for those Fluences. So that might be getting a little heavy, but I like those choices. If you did just want to go with passive speakers and a small amplifier, I was just going to mention at Ascend, the HTM200 SE2s might be a better choice than the Lunas. Even though they're a sealed speaker, they're more bass capable, higher output capable, and very not picky about placement, which I love about those HTM200 SEs. If you have no idea what your room situation is going to be, I really quite like the HTM200 SE2s because they're very not picky about placement. If you just say, hey, ignore all that, I'm going with the Lunas, or I'm going with these HTMs or some other passive pair of speakers, I would point you at a WIM amp to power them rather than a full-on AV receiver. Because this has sufficient power to power them. It has an HDMI ARC port, so it's easy to connect to your television. It's $300, so it's, not cheap, but it's not completely breaking the bank. And then, fantastic wireless capabilities that are on this thing as well, including the WIM Amp does AirPlay 2. The newer WIM Amp Pro, they don't have AirPlay 2 on that one for some reason, and I don't think the improvement in signal-to-noise ratio is important enough to pay more and get less. So I would go with the WIM Amp if you're going to go passive speakers, but honestly, I think self-powered speakers are the way to go here. Less to unplug, less to carry, fewer wires.
Yeah, I linked up a Fluence. Well, we've reviewed a bunch of Fluence powered speakers over at AV Gadgets, and I kept changing the ones I put in there. I think I put the ones that are closest to this, but they're towers. Okay. But they're, I think, as far as the feature set, that's kind of the closest.
Same feature set.
Powered speakers that you can just kind of plug in, and if once you've unplugged them and plugged them once, you're kind of okay. I've got no problems with HDMI ARC in this situation, but just remember, HDMI, the connection itself, is not great. It never has been, and it continues to be bad, and it will always be bad because they won't fix it. So it's not really meant to be plugged in and out a whole bunch of times. So if you're using ARC, which there's nothing wrong with that, you're risking, wearing out that port eventually. Just be careful with it, I guess, is my
And I like, if I'm getting a self-powered pair of speakers to act as a TV system, audio system, I like having it because increasingly we're finding TVs that is the only audio output anymore. They're not even including optical ports on TVs on some of them now. So I like that the self-powered speakers I recommend or would buy myself at least have the option to use an HDMI ARC port. I think that's increasingly becoming important.
So who have left?
We have Patrick, and that was it.
All right, Patrick. We'll see you next week.
We shall.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. We're going to thank our listeners of the week. We're going to thank our 124 patrons over at patreon.com. That's down 4 from last week. So check your credit cards.
Yeah, we went down to 125 last month, and it crawled its way back up to 128 by the end of the month, and now it's back down to 124. But that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you want to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation or re-sign up because your credit card expired. That is the way to do it. So thank you very much for the financial support and the 124 patrons right now.
Thank you very much. Thank Ren and Julian for sending in movie codes for me to test out. I have done that for you, and you are welcome.
There you go. Thank you, Ren. Thank you, Julian.
And thank Rohan, Jason, and Anonymous for sending us notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going. We appreciate you.
We sure do. I'll say the names one more time. We got Rohan, Jason, and Anonymous. Thank you so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
For AVRant, I'm Tom Antry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.